Yeah, he wasn't that fast.
Yeah.
You know, like, but I mean, he's soccer. But yeah. I know now we're starting to think that because I really
Let your mom run down organization, blah, 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 blah. And then I think I'll do a little introduction myself, purpose, like behave, addressing 200 questions, and then I'll ask the questions. And then Tina's going to have some things on student success, Brian on finance. I'll begin individual questions. There'll be no lease facility questions because it's premature. And after that, public comment, 3 minutes max per person. No more than 45 minutes total. Courteous, no attacks, professional, appropriate.
Okay.
Remember, disagreement doesn't make you my enemy. You know.
So will you ask for the preemption from Brian first, or Mr. Sarah?
Tina. Oh, wait a minute. You guys are after Brian. Okay, so then Merit. I rewrote this.
Okay, so we'll be right after.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Merit presentation.
Yeah, I just have like a try to make up some questions. Okay, well, thank you.
Yes. Ready? No, they took the 200 and they highlighted in green enough so it should cover all of them. I should now. I'll go in order. As I go down, start with the board questions and go from there. I think so. Otherwise, I'll get confused.
No, so we didn't get to see him for much.
Welcome, everyone. It is past 6 o'clock, so let's get started. I want to welcome everyone here. This is the town hall hearing that we want to have part of a long process that we've been involved with the chartering of Merit Academy and their contract with us. So tonight we'll be taking your questions, and I'm so glad you're here. I just want to say, to point out the elephant that is in the room, and no, Nick, I'm not talking about you. So the elephant in the room is whenever a district charters a school, there's always divisiveness, there's always division that happens in the community. All across the United States, we see traditional public schools, not just here in Woodland Park, not just here in Colorado or Denver, but across the United States. For some reasons, usually for no fault of the district itself, parents are choosing to put their kids somewhere else. And as we see the decline in enrollment from traditional public schools, we also universally across the United States, not just here, not in Woodland Park, not in Colorado, but across the United States, we see an increase in parents sending their kids to charter schools. So how do we deal with that as a district? I was elected to represent the people, the voters of RE2 district. So I represent you. I represent the kids of the parents and the kids of this district. So what do we do? How do we respond? Well, we can respond any number of ways. You know, we can allow this division that we have that is tangible. I get calls and texts and emails from both sides. So tonight, we want to listen to those questions. We want to answer those questions. But I want to challenge people with this. What do we do? How do we respond? The thing that is most important to me is that we not take offense with each other. We can choose to be offended. We can choose not to be offended. We can choose to forgive people, or we can choose to withhold that forgiveness. But you know, one thing that I learned, I don't know where it came from, but unforgiveness towards people who offended us is like drinking poison with the intention of hurting the person that we're not willing to forgive. So I want to intentionally not take offense at a person that I disagree with. I want to intentionally forgive a person who might have said something insulting or nasty to me. And you know what? I want to start with me to be an agent of peace that brings our community together. I was corrected at a meeting about 2 weeks ago by somebody that I have high respect for, and she is on the staff here at WPSD. And she stopped me in a meeting and she said, she said, that's wrong. That competition and things like that do not bring us together. It makes us weaker. But together we are much better. So I'm going to urge all of us, at the end of this decision about Merit Academy, whether it goes for merit or whether it goes against merit, half the people in this room will be happy about the decision, and half the people in this auditorium will be very angry or upset about it. So let's choose now to decide to let's be together, because what she told me is we are better together. So that's what I have for us tonight. So I want to turn the meeting over now to Dr. Matthew Neal, our superintendent, and let's have a good evening.
If I might, I need to make a roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Austin, would you proceed as a regular board meeting then?
Yes, sir, I would. I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Illingworth,
Aye.
Patterson,
Aye.
Rusterholz,
Aye.
Austin, aye. Thank you, Dr. Neal.
My pleasure. Members of the community, members of the board, and distinguished panelists. I wanted to first thank the panelists for coming this evening. It's not their regular role to stand in front of groups of people like this, and sometimes it's difficult. And so thank you for doing this evening. I know Ms. Cassens has traveled across the United States in the last 24 hours. Miles was up till well into the evening helping tabulate the questions. The way the evening will go will be described in a little bit by Mr. Tom Weston, who is our guest, is also the future charter liaison. And the charter liaison is a described person in the contract that is a go-between between the charter school and the district. And their job is to be a moderator between both the district and the charter school. And I think it's a great way to start the conversation tonight is letting the community learn a little bit about Mr. Weston, his background, and kind of the way that we'll go. I will tag team a little bit this evening with Mr. Weston. This is not a town hall like we do every week, so your patience ahead of time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to forget that what's next. We're going to get out of order, and we're going to forget that there's a three-minute limit. So thank you ahead of time for your patience. We've spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks trying to pull this together and the details. And I think Tom, with Tom's help, hopefully he'll keep us on track. So without further ado, I'll bounce in and out of your conversation, sir, but if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. Good evening. Thanks for coming. You don't know me. My name's Tom Weston, and this is my 42nd year in public education. One of you knows me. Bless you. Good to see you. I spent 30 plus years in education as a teacher, administrator, finally down in District 20 in Academy as a principal at Liberty High School. The last 12 I've served as a charter school liaison. And just to tell you how new this phenomena is, some 12 years ago, almost 13, Superintendent of Academy 20 called me and he said, "We need you to come be our charter school liaison. Are you interested?" And I said, "What's a charter school liaison?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, we got a charter that's going in the ditch and we need your help." I said, "Okay." And since then, 7 school districts later and some 15 charter schools, the sector just continues to grow. So my role basically is, as a liaison, as Dr. Neal said, I try and keep the charters when I need to out of a ditch. Sometimes they don't know Colorado statute, sometimes they do, and I can kind of help guide them in that direction. I also help authorizers be good authorizers. So the school district authorizes and manages a charter school in a way that's legal. And so really I help both sides. And if the district messes up as an authorizer, I'm a free, independent, I can just say that. And if the charter makes a mistake, I can say that too. So I kind of go between the two. I do not have a dog in the hunt. I just try and create the best educational environment for the kids involved in any small way I can. So that's basically what I do. Here's our organization tonight. You submitted almost 200 questions, which says something about the community. You're involved. Good for you. Well done. The staff had to take 200 questions and figure out how not to have a 12-hour town hall. And so what they did is categorize them down. And so what we're going to do is go through those by category. So you can imagine there are many duplicates or close to duplicates. And so they would consolidate those in all the areas. And we're going to try and get through, well, we will get through the content basically of all of those as efficiently and completely as possible. I'll ask the questions to the various groups. So the first ones are going to be to the board, the Woodland Park Board, and I'll ask them the question. They can respond. We'll try and keep them to 2 and 3 minutes as well, because you don't want to be here at 2 a.m. And I live in Parker, Colorado, so it's a time change to get back home. So I'd like to get that done too. But before I get to the direct questions, Brian is going to take the finance questions that he had, and he's going to address those as kind of a group. Tina Cassens is going to take hers with student success and try and address those. I do want you to know we won't address lease or facility questions just because it's premature. At this point, it's not unusual for those still to be up in the air. So if you had a facility question, lease question, it's not cooked yet. And when it is, we can address lease and facility. It's an important one. It's just not ready yet. So we will do that. And then Merit, the folks from Merit will do a little presentation, kind of 5 to 10 minutes of just, this is who we are. So you know that. And then I'll begin with the questions. We'll get through those. And then we'll have public comment. And what public comment is going to look like, we hope, there's a microphone down here, maximum of 3 minutes. No more than 45 minutes for the entire thing, again, because of the time thing. The only thing that I would say as a moderator, and I have no authority here at all, but just as a human being, courteous and professional and no attacks and appropriate language. There are probably students here. We want to model for them. And I think the mantra is something I heard actually in a charter school board meeting a few weeks ago, where someone said, if I disagree with you, it doesn't make you my enemy. It just means we disagree, and that's okay. So we'll kind of go with that to get things started. So, Mr. Gustafson, do you want to begin and address some finance questions?
Just one real quick interruption. What you're about to hear in these statements was a very scientific and thought out process to answer a large number of questions that were very duplicative. So I know that Brian is going to be, one of the paragraphs that Brian is reading is actually answering about 16 questions with regard to charter language. So charters and waivers and duration of contract and why is this contract not like a business contract? And so they've taken a lot of effort to gather groups of questions, write a narrative or a paragraph about them. And so what you're about to hear is the beginning of the answering process to those questions. So the three groups that are speaking will be Brian, Tina, and the Merit team, and that is the beginning of the answering questions time. Secondly, and I'll take a text from Lindsay if that's okay. If you have not signed up for public comment, I need for you to go ahead and do so now, as they're going through and dividing those, basically assigning those by order for the public comment period of time. And so if you haven't signed up for public comment, that will close shortly. And so I would appreciate knowing how many people have signed up for public comment before we get to that section. Number 3, once public comment starts, there will not be questions asked during the public comment period of time. The opportunity, unfortunately, for those questions has passed, and that's what we're going to fulfill right now with the nearly 200 questions. So the public comment is simply that. It's that of addressing the board, and I'm going to save both Merit and my staff from having to face the audience on that one. So they're going to step off the stage, and really those are comments directly to the board as a whole. I would also ask that nobody legally identify or specifically point to one of our board members, as they function as a board as a whole and not as individual board members. And then lastly, just one piece of, I guess, safety or security. Security has been authorized to escort anybody out of the building if unfortunately things become difficult. And so I hope that is not the case at all, and that everybody is able to take a very gentle warning, and then we're going to continue on in a very appropriate manner. Mr. Weston, anything else on that?
I think that covers it. We're off and running.
All right.
Brian?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Brian Gustafson. I'm the Executive Director of Business Services for the Woodland Park School District. I'm going to address 3 categories. The questions, as Mr. Weston indicated, came in at about an N of 200 and divided into categories. The first is charter law. So about 9 or 10 questions that centered around the laws, how charter schools are established, those kinds of things. And so for this section, I've got a statement that I'll read. And this is, to address charter law. Charter schools are specifically called out in statute and do not require the same compliance as district schools in statute. And I think that's important to remember. In many cases, they are able, they being charter schools, to waive statutory requirements. Here are some specific examples to address the questions that have been submitted. Charter schools, like Merit, can and often do waive the responsibility to hire teachers with a state license. Okay? So that is a waiver not only for the charter school in this district, but charter schools statewide. Charters generally waive out of policies that are set by the district because they wish to manage their own governance structure. In the case of the contract, if approved, Merit will have a period of time to develop the district and their policies, which they have developed. They'll have the time to notify the district of their policies, which they've developed, including their safety plan. And this is permitted in statute. Charter applications do not require the school to have existed or have previous experience running schools. In the case of Merit, they do have nearly 1 year of operational status currently in this fiscal year of 22. The charter does have its own board and its own attorney. The Woodland Park School District Board does not have access to information related to legal counsel between Merit and its attorney. Should Merit not be successful, the students would revert immediately to their neighborhood school within the specific district that they reside within. And lastly, to address those charter law questions, transportation nor food service is also not a requirement of charter schools, and that's throughout the state of Colorado. Okay, so charter law.
All right, thank you, Brian. I'll also just tell you, just from my experience, just so you know, charters have to go through a financial audit every single year, just like every other district school does, and that has to be proven their state rules and all those kinds of things. If they get federal funding, ESSER funds, COVID funds, all that, they're under the same rules as any other place. So they still have to follow the rules. There are certain things, as Brian said, they may waive out of, and the state board reviews that, and they go from there. Okay, Tina, on student success. I'm sorry.
I've got two more.
Oh, you have two more,
sections.
sorry.
All right, the next one is more categorized in the contract conditions topic, and about 16 questions were forwarded to the district regarding contract conditions. It's important to note that charter school contracts are unique and cannot be compared to very many other contracts, including those of like LLCs or employment contracts. As part of any contract, there are components that must be completed now before signature, and some components that are due in the months to come, such as waivers of policy. Merit has provided all documentation and components of their contract to fulfill the obligation for application, and as such, this contract is complete to the satisfaction of the Board of WPSD. There are, of course, items that remain, which over the next few months and into years will be required along the way, such as items within Attachment 10, which are not yet due. These will be reviewed and approved as appropriate by the district administration under the direction of the superintendent. As with all district documents, when submitted, documents will become accessible by the public. And as with all contracts, when issues of compliance arise or breach of contract, the superintendent and his staff have the obligation to hold Merit accountable to the contract up to and including mediation and termination of the contract by the board as described within the contract. These conversations shall be deemed as timely in the eyes of the district. Contract language does indicate that the parties agree to reasonably discuss cohabitation in the future. This contract is written for 5 years. That's the term in this contract. And this includes annual reviews by the superintendent and the staff. This contract length has been negotiated between the board and the charter school. So that addresses the questions on contract conditions. Any other comments there, Mr. Weston? Okay. All right, I will move on to questions surrounding finances, and I'll approach this a little bit differently. I've lumped those questions into additional subcategories and want to address those. About 15 questions assigned to me there. The first under finances is debt. And the question there is really, what is the exact amount of debt that the district is incurring from Merit? Okay, is the board fiscally responsible to take this on? There are concerns that this could cause financial harm to the district. And how is the district supposed to basically move forward with having to take on debt of the charter school? And it's important to understand that in this contract, and in many, if not all contracts with charter schools, the district is not responsible for any of Merit's debt. And the district, really, that's the responsibility of the school. Okay, the district will not inherit those obligations. Merit will be responsible for that debt that they carry forward and into this agreement. There are additional questions there as far as getting into renovation costs, and I know we're not talking about the facilities, but just understand that the district will be flowing through such costs down the road. So that's to address debt. A lot of questions in the finance realm came across regarding mill levy override and sales tax revenues. For instance, a question, can the contract be modified to say that if Merit receives unused district space, then it forfeits any sales tax and mill levy funds? Okay, it's important to understand that it's up to the Board of Education and the Merit Board to negotiate and modify the contract. That's their role in this. When it comes to mill levy dollars, mill levy override, and the district receives a $1,100,000 mill levy override each year. We certify that in our annual mills. And that's a fixed dollar amount. That was approved by voters in the early 2000s. Statutorily, the district is required to forward on a proportionate amount to its charter schools. Okay, so that we're budgeting for that. That'll be about $145,000 next year based on enrollment projections with the district and Merit Academy. Okay, that's statutorily required. So yes, the district will cut its mill levy override revenues and forward it on to Merit. There are questions about sales tax. Hey, is that required statutorily for the district to forward on sales tax dollars? And no, that is not required in law, because sales tax is actually not a recognized public school funding source in the state of Colorado. That's a unique situation here in Woodland Park, and an agreement created in conjunction with the city of Woodland Park and the Woodland Park School District. All right, so that's not referred to like it is in law for mill levy override. In the contract, sales tax revenue will be flowed through proportionately to Merit Academy to the tune, again, based on pupils, expected funded pupils, to the tune of about $6,000 next year. Of course, that will continue in perpetuity or throughout this contract. Hey, those questions also have some other, I guess, additions. How will the district make up the loss of that sales tax funding? Right, well, we're in the process right now of building our proposed budget, and frankly, we're waiting, right? We have to submit that in a week, but we're waiting for the results of all this. It's a pretty compressed timeline. So we don't have an additional revenue source to counteract those flow-throughs. There aren't projected funded pupil increases to generate additional revenue to offset that $450,000. Right, so in year one, that'll have to likely be out of district reserves to address that shortfall, or dramatic, well, depending on the department, budget reductions here in the last week or so of our budget development process. Mill levy override dollars and sales tax dollars are both used primarily for compensation of district staff. Hey, that's what they're approved for when they're voted in the early 2000s for mill levy override, and in 2016 for sales tax dollars. So the district will have to adjust how it uses those dollars when they're not with the existing 5 schools for compensation. Again, likely out of reserves for next year, and then we'll have to adjust in the years to come. Just glancing at these other sales tax, mill levy override related questions. There were a handful about how does it affect the school's budget. I believe I've covered that. Yeah, let's see. We'll go down to program funding. So program funding is basically the per pupil dollar amount, the per pupil rate times the number of funded pupils. Okay, and there was a question specific to the contract in section 8.2A about the first monthly payment being due to Merit on July 1st, and that's not accurate. The first monthly payment will actually be on July 25th of 2022. July 1st starts the fiscal year of the 22-23 year. And the question is, what enrollment number will be used to determine the payments that start in July? Okay, Merit's adopted budget predicts a student funded pupil count of 314. And I believe together with the district, it's about 2,279 total students funded. The district is projecting 1,965.7 funded pupils next year. So what we do is then fund or flow through that program revenue, the state funding to Merit. And that will be to the tune next year at about $9,200 per pupil. That'll be a total of about $2.8 million that will flow from the district to Merit for per pupil revenue. That will be in monthly installments at about $238,000 per month, starting on the 25th of July, and then each month on the 25th thereafter. And the 25th is important because the district receives its per pupil revenue from the state on about the 24th each month. Additional questions regarding funded pupils. In section 6.1 of the contract, there is a question about student movement. When students transfer out of Merit back to Woodland Park School District, vice versa, will the per pupil revenue that I just talked about, that $9,200 per pupil, will that follow the student? And the answer there is that it depends on the timing. In the state of Colorado, the funded pupil October count is what determines how we're funded. And so October 1st is really important. And if you've had kids in school, right, you get those emails and those communications from the administrators, hey, we got to have little junior here on Tuesday, October 1st. It's important. That's why. It's because that means $9,000. And if a student were to transfer between schools prior to that, then those dollars would follow that student. If a student were to transfer after that, the dollars would stay behind. And that's how it works, not only in this agreement, not only in this district, but throughout the state. Kids move often. They move all year long from district to district, school to school. So whether a student is coming to Woodland Park School District from Manitou Springs High School or from Merit Academy, it's the same. If they come before October 1st, great. We're going to get them counted in the funded pupils. If they come after, then the sending school gets the benefit from that for that year. So student movement that comes after October can be challenging at times, certainly, because the staffing levels are built on what you're projecting your enrollment to be in October. So I hope that addresses that transfer of funding. There are additional questions there about special education students similarly, and understand that, again, it's a similar answer. It depends on the timing of the transfer. Transfers before the count date, okay, take the funding with them, and transfers after the count date, leave the funding behind. We do count special education students also at an additional time in December for some state flow-through money that actually comes the following year, but the same dynamic exists there. Let's see. I think I've addressed those. Generally about costs incurred, there's a question about how much money has the district spent this school year on issues related to Merit Academy. Direct expenses, legal fees, consulting fees, estimated how much time district staff is devoted to this effort, and can Merit be made to reimburse the district for these expenses? I'll be honest, these aren't itemized at this time. Indirect costs, like staff time, my time, Miles' time, Tina's time, cannot be charged back to Merit until we get into a contract. All right, and then in the contract, that will be taken care of through an administrative fee withholding. All right. As far as answering the detailed itemized question on that, frankly, I haven't had the time to go through and calculate that, and I don't get paid by the hour, so I'm not tracking that for myself. But it's in the tens of thousands, certainly, of dollars in our legal fees, et cetera. I can't quantify the time for the staff. Costs incurred for legal. The district has agreed to pay an attorney a $20,000 flat fee when Merit becomes chartered, excuse me, under Woodland Park School District. Please explain the reasoning. That is actually not a fee that the district will be pursuing as far as particular service. That's a fee that's part of a fee schedule if a district were to pursue a service called, I forget what that's called, facility funding. And that's not a fee that we'll be engaged in. So that $20,000 flat fee does not apply to our activities right now. In the contract, if you've read through there, you've seen that there are references to a document called Attachment 10. And Attachment 10 is an addendum. It's an attachment that comes after the signing of the contract that details on an annual basis the cost and flow-through agreements for that year. So annually, as Dr. Neal referred to, the the two parties will get together, look at what are the real costs, the projected students, and then update their attachment 10, basically like what's the flow through going to be for per pupils, what are the withholdings going to be for administrative costs, with the liaison costs, and then work through that together annually. So that's not available yet because we don't have a signed contract. We have a signed contract, then we'll sit down and we'll start going through those costs, the per pupils, or their adjustments to the funded pupil expectations, et cetera. The district does not have a proposed budget yet and won't have an adopted budget till into June. So once we get that information, we can really start to dial in those costs. We can make projections certainly, but then we need to really get those dialed in because those will be the actual transactions of dollars. That will be detailed on attachment 10. And that's typical. That's not unique to Woodland Park, that it comes after the signing of the contract. That will come a little bit later on a real-time basis. And then the last one I have on finances is the topic of the failing of a charter school or merit academy. How will the cost of dissolution impact or be absorbed by WPSD? And frankly, in the event of a dissolution, the cost may be variable depending on the timing. And so if you think back to the funded pupil, the flow of pupils question, it depends. If a charter school were to fail in February and 100 students had to be redistributed, sent back to their neighborhood schools, well, then the schools would have to adjust and the funding would not follow, right? The schools would have to adjust staffing, modify classes, those kinds of things. If that closure were to happen early in a year, then the funding would likely follow because the district would certify new students in their October count. Note that in the contract, it specifies that in such an instance, the expectation would be that the school finishes out the school year and then moves forward from there. So with that, those are the finance related questions.
One little addition, just because I had it in my experience, the question of kids in and kids out, moving from Merit to Woodland Park. We had it in two different contracts, one in Academy 20, one in Pueblo 60, where on the 11th kid or the 21st kid net change, there'd be a PPOR transfer per pupil operating, revenue transfer. So on that 21st kid, that $9,000 goes over. What we found is, A, never happened. You never got that far. And the bookkeeping to figure out the 21st kid, you talk about cost, didn't work. So it rarely happens that it's a significant number, just so you know. Okay. So Tina, on student success questions?
Great. So Tina Cassens, I'm the Executive Director of Student Success. I didn't have quite as many questions in the bank of questions. So some questions came about state testing. So state testing is a state statute required of Woodland Park School District, required of Merit Academy. So everyone will be testing. So with state testing and Merit, as well as the Woodland Park schools, will receive school performance framework ratings next year. And Merit scores will be incorporated into, if they're chartered, into the district scores. So they become part of the district scores as a whole, just like all of our other schools. The district does retain the accreditation of Merit. So we look at growth, achievement, closing of the at-risk groups, those gaps, and post-secondary workforce readiness. So the items that appear on the school performance framework, and the district would accredit Merit. Related to that, there were some questions about district testing. So Woodland Park School District has district testing, STAR, MAP, DIBELS testing for our students, benchmark testing. Merit will establish their own interim assessments to track student achievement and growth. If Merit were to perform below performance level on the school performance framework, then the district would work with them to develop and track quarterly benchmark targets like we would do with any of our schools in the district. The next category dealt with extracurricular activities. So again, by state statute, students that do not have the extracurricular activities in their school are eligible to attend those activities in another school that offers those. And that works from students from Merit coming to Woodland Park School District, as well as students from Woodland Park School District going to Merit for activities that they don't have. Participation is based on meeting some prerequisite requirements based on the activity and then available space. In Woodland Park School District, the fees then and by law are up to 1.5 times for the students that are not enrolled in the school. So, and then basically, if we're looking at academic courses, students are not eligible to enroll in academic courses on a part-time basis. So for example, coming to a band class, art, an AP class, career tech ed, those do not fall under the extracurricular activities guidelines. As far as competing interscholastic teams, so when we compete against other schools, we compete under the name of the school and the mascot of the host school. So if we're competing at Woodland Park High School under the Panthers, that would be how we would compete. And we have students from Woodland Park High School that travel and compete on other teams and earn letters from other schools. And that's just kind of how things have worked historically. The final area I had was just interactions, how students from different schools will interact inside and outside the school day. We will continue to interact as a community outside the school day. Our kids do that all the time. They sit on club teams together. They go to church together. They do activities together. That will continue to happen outside of our school day. Interactions won't take place during the school day, but our students, as they do right now, will know kids from around the region and they will interact together, and we will develop that in all of our schools. So that's it.
Okay, before we get to the questions I will ask, we want to give Merit a chance to kind of introduce themselves to you for 5 or 10 minutes, so I'll turn it over to the Merit Board.
Good evening. Dr. Neal asked me to put together a list as well to try to address some questions tonight. So, what? Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm getting there. My name is Nicole Wagner. I am a parent, founder, and current president of the Board of Merit Academy. I am joined on stage by our secretary, John Dill, and our director of development, Dr. Gwen Peckron. I would like to thank the Woodland Park School District Board of Directors for the opportunity to address the public for the first time in over 18 months. For those not familiar with our story, we represent a group of parents who sought an educational choice for their children. We came together from lots of different places on our educational journeys in the middle of a pandemic to try to make the new normal a better normal. Along the way, we discovered that local parents desired a classical approach featuring a core knowledge curriculum, a tried and true pairing that has seen great success at some of the most renowned schools in the state, including Liberty Commons, the Classical Academy, and Vanguard, to name a few. Parents also desired a structure of uniforms and a traditional approach to discipline. This approach is not something that all desire, but there is enough interest to begin to serve some of the roughly 1,400 students who have sought educational choice both within and outside local areas. We are a 501c3 nonprofit school, currently serving 170 full-time students and roughly 78 homeschool and Falcon Aero Lab students. This number is inclusive of 4 gifted and talented children, 8 on 504s, 18 on IEPs, and 12 on READ plans. We currently do not have any ELL children. I'd like to take a moment to address a few topics which have been widely discussed and unfortunately frequently misunderstood. Free and reduced lunch to start, or FRL. We have the forms to enroll in free and reduced lunch available, but have had few applicants. Perhaps one of the reasons is that we were able to avoid charging student fees or other than nominal ones for field trips. Our families who were charged with this cost, we were able to cover their expense through donations. We will continue to offer FRL applications as, of course, application to an admission to Merit Academy is blind and without any tuition or fee. Waivers are another point of focus, and thank you for already addressing this a little bit. This is really a question to the state regarding charter school waivers. As noted in statute, charter schools may operate free from specified school district policies and free from state rules. A local board of education may waive locally imposed school district requirements without seeking approval of the state board. In all actuality, the district can also seek waivers from the state on various statutes or can change their district policies. The district has policies that stem back to 1991 prior to the implementation of policy governance. The district is operated by elected officials and their selected personnel and the experts therein. The charter is operated by parent representatives and community representatives on the board and our SAC. The state grants a certain level of autonomy to these entities as long as the laws are followed. there are policies that Merit will have waivers from simply because of state statute. For instance, we will not use restorative justice, the Summit Learning Platform, or standards-based grading. We will not teach the intensive sex ed health class, although I don't believe the district does this either. The charter board, not the WPSD board, is the governing body of the charter school, and the chief action officer, not the superintendent, is the C-level employee to the governing board. Policies will be adjusted or waived per the power and responsibility granted by the state to reflect those changes. The state provides this option of waivers so that charter schools may continue to represent the parent's choice in school and provide another option of desired education for families within the district. As Governor Polis said in his April 13th letter to President Biden, our students need more public school options, and high-quality charter schools play a critical role in providing that access. He went on to note, in Colorado, charter school enrollment grew by 5,268 students during the same time frame, 2020 to 2021, while non-charter school enrollment fell by 29,778 students. These state-recognized waivers are one of the essential elements required to continue the success the governor spoke about. Who wouldn't want an Olympic marksman teaching rifle? A triple master chef teaching culinary arts, a cyber professional teaching cybersecurity, or a heart surgeon teaching students how to dissect a heart. Simply a highly qualified teacher from out of state looking to teach in Colorado, or a retired teacher with a lapsed license looking to come back. These are the types of professionals the waivers truly help us bring to our students for their educational enrichment. Again, we thank the WPSD board for inviting us here this evening, and we hope that we can have a very productive, respectful, and informative conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to the questions. And the first set of questions was to the board, the Woodland Park Board. So we'll go to that. And this first one has to do with the application that Merit initially submitted. And the question is, has every member of the board read in full the documentation for why Merit was denied the first time they applied to Woodland Park School District? And can the board clarify how Merit has addressed those shortcomings and concerns? And as you're thinking about that, I will just tell you in terms of a process, in a charter application, absent a material, something really material missing, we have no facility, we have no enrollment, we cannot hire, whatever. If a charter is denied, there's a third player in this equation. It's the State Board of Education. And if the denial is seen, any denial is seen as capricious, they can reverse it or send it back. So just know that going on as they think about that question. So has everyone read the documentation for why it was denied? And can you clarify how Merit has addressed the shortcomings?
I'll start out with part of that, the answer to that question. I did read originally the denial, and I read it before I had been elected. I was concerned about some of the things. The Merit Academy contacted me long before I was a candidate, when I was a candidate in a different campaign. I met with people at their houses before all of this started, and I heard about the denials. Some of them were concerning to me, and I'll address the ones that were most concerning to me and let the other board members respond to other things. At first, I was concerned that they were not providing transportation to school. I was very concerned about that. I was also concerned about the lunch program, especially for children whose families could not afford it, the free and reduced lunch program. After I was elected, I did find out that that was not a requirement, although I was concerned that I wanted to hear a plan that Merit would, in good faith, work to establish that plan. I was assured by their board of directors that that would be something that they also wanted to have. They wanted to provide it for their students. I was told that I could go on and on, but anyway, that was what I was told by their board of directors, that they were working towards that plan. Part of our agreement with them in this contract is that they would work towards that goal, and we would have that discussion at least annually. Thank you.
What we're going to try and do is hold responses to 3 minutes as well, so we get through them all if we can. Any other members of the board want to speak to that particular question?
I've been on record publicly at many meetings that I have read everything associated with the initial application. I read the DAC report. I read the board's resolution denying it. I read every single public comment that was submitted. I read the independent examiner's recommendation that the board approve Merit's charter application. So I felt like I was pretty well aware of it. I did take note that the reasons stated in the board's resolution denying the application, I didn't agree with them. They had to do with things that Merit was not legally required to do. Merit is not required to provide transportation. They are not required by law to provide the same meal program that a regular school is required to do. There was concerns about sort of demographic makeup that has nothing to do with the law. It has nothing to do with a school that has a blind lottery process for taking in students. So I found the reasons that were given by the board to either be incorrect or irrelevant to the charter application under the law. So that's my feeling as to how it is they address those issues.
Great, thank you. Second question, how do you propose paying for our current educators, buildings, and other expenses if you're encouraging
Pardon me,
local
Mr.
students?
Weston, I believe Mr. Austin had another comment.
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
apologize.
It's okay. I'm a little slow on the uptake.
Sorry, my fault.
You're moving faster than I am tonight. I was part of drafting the resolutions for the denial. And so I have read it and I understand it. And the second part of your question that I think is a very valid question has to do with where do we see the resolve in the contract? And I would say that my primary concerns were settled on a couple of these big issues related to leadership, for example. Like apparently they're functioning quite well and are doing just fine. So for me, the big question mark of were they capable of leading a school? One of the challenges in the original resolution had to do with initially starting with K through 10. And so they took the initiative to pare that down, and they are moving incrementally towards, yep. And then I would say that the big question for me had to do with the finances. And that was something that Mr. Gustafson has done a tremendous amount of work, and I appreciate, towards answering and just really finding the kind of the firewall in the contract that protects Woodland Park School District from liability and the responsibility of taking care of Merit's financial situation in the event that they should cease to function. And so those firewalls I believe are in the contract. And so that has helped me personally kind of quiet that question mark for myself. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I will add this, sorry, again, slow on the uptake. The facility piece was another one, and they are currently in a building. In fact, they have worked, I believe, very hard to create a space that worked for them. I know that at one point they were in 2 different churches, and they have a consolidated space. And there is some question about, how that's going to look for them in the future, of course, especially with their projected numbers of over 300. So I still have some questions about that.
Okay. Any others? Okay. So the question, next one was, how do you propose paying for our current educators, buildings, and other expenses if you're encouraging local students and families to attend a charter? And as you're thinking about that, I would just tell you again from 12, 13 years in this, a board that accepts an application and charters a charter school is not de facto encouraging them to go to a charter. They're simply providing a choice for that. I mean, it's maybe semantics, but I think it's an important one, just so you know. But go ahead, board.
So the question is, How do we propose paying for our staff and teachers if we're encouraging kids to go to a charter?
Correct.
So like you said, Tom, we're not encouraging anyone to go to a charter. We have a school that's in the school district that currently operates completely independent of this community's oversight because they have their own board and they're chartered by a BOCES. They're not authorized by a district where people from this community, this county are elected to govern. So by doing that, we are creating a much more community oversight-based relationship with a school that's existing in our boundaries. Parents are the ones choosing to send their kids there. My understanding is that Merit currently operates with about 180 students and is projecting to go over 300 next year. What's exciting about that is that we are, as Ms. Cassens noted, they're going to be counted amongst our school's performance rates. Their academics are going to be part of our community, and they are not declining like our other schools are. So we're going to be able to bring students back in, and you have to have students in order to be able to fund teachers and educational programs and buildings like this one.
Thank you. Any other board members?
Yes, I'd like to say school choice and choice is what the United States is all about. We each make personal decisions for ourselves. And because we're providing a choice, doesn't mean that we're encouraging parents to send their children there. It's parents that were part of this school district that chose to start this school. Now, I want to do everything that we can do as Woodland Park School District Board of Directors to encourage people to come to our schools. So I think that providing choice and options, or actually not providing it, but opening the door for it to happen. Just a real quick thing. The community was extremely concerned about Walmart coming to town. It was voted down by city council one time. And they were concerned that all of the schools would run out, all the stores and other businesses would have troubles. But as you see, none of the stores closed down and we are thriving. It brought people to our community. I think this is a similar thing.
If I might, just to answer the question about how do we anticipate paying for our staff, I think that's at the core of the question. And obviously, as has happened in this district over the course of several years, if there is a decline in enrollment, then adjustments are made to how you're going to staff your schools accordingly. And so I would imagine then that we have folks who are retiring, their positions may not be filled if there needs to be a reduction of workforce. I would say that that question is really important related to how we're going to communicate our value for the staff and the teachers. It's probably more related to that than to the answer of how are we actually going to finance them. I think this is something that we are currently working on, even in the meet and confer process. And so I think that will continue in the years to come. And it will, if there is a challenge, and there will be challenges related to the adjustment of this transaction or this transition, I am confident in the staff in the administration of Woodland Park to find very viable solutions to those challenges. Very convinced of that.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. Next question. Have the members of the board given an honest consideration to the impact this is having, much less will have, on our children, and how will we navigate additional mental, emotional impacts next year and possibly beyond?
So I want to go ahead and keep rolling here. I was just talking to someone who works at a district down in Colorado Springs, and one of their primary concerns as a board of directors is how they're going to implement things related to social and emotional wellness and learning. And I was incredibly proud to be able to say that this district is already functioning at a high level, incredibly high level of addressing and being proactive towards the social impacts and the impacts. Now, when it comes to the academics and when it comes to things like that, I'll refer back to what I just shared about my confidence in the staff and in the administration of this district. I would say that we're already ahead of the curve on how we are going to care for the students of the Woodland Park School District. It's really admirable if we think about the last 2 years and how this administration and how this staff has adjusted and cared for a group of students in a collective trauma, really. And so I am nothing but proud of them, and I have full confidence that they are going to be able to address the social impacts of students in Woodland Park because of a transfer.
I'd like to jump right on the tails of that. During the government shutdown of our schools, and I saw from outside how our staff quickly adapted. And if they can quickly adapt to online learning and at home, if we can provide the kind of care that students need, that when suicide rates were up around the country, we had 0 suicides here. I have learned to be so impressed with our teachers, our staff, for how discipline is handled, for how education is handled, and how just adapting, improvising, and overcoming. I have full confidence in our staff that that will happen successfully.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that as well. I think we are dealing with very competent administrators and teachers, and at the adult level, that we need to mentor our children, and we need to set an example that even though there's a wall in between Merit and Woodland Park School, we are collectively a district. And, you know, I commend all the leaders up to this point and beyond that we can mentor these children and they can follow our example that we are all one in this community, and there's room and there's love for one and for all.
Thank you. Okay, the next 2 questions are really very similar, so I'll try and combine them. Basically, the first question is asking the board to explain why a memorandum of understanding rather than a standard application is called for in statute. Why is the district not following through the standard charter application process? Why is Merit receiving special treatment given the differences between the original Merit charter application and the draft contract? Wouldn't a new application actually be pertinent and valuable in terms of contract term enrollment and all those things? So that was 2 in 1.
So, and Tom, I know you have personal experience with this from your work with the Charter School Institute. What is happening with Merit is that since they last filed an application, which came to an end in December of 2020, they opened. They got a contract to operate from a BOCES. They opened a school. So a lot of the questions that were questions when they applied are now known answers. And what we are doing is something that has been done in the state before. It's something that is done regularly with the Charter School Institute, which is a statewide chartering authorizing agency, if I'm using the right terms, which is that you can take a school that is already open and operating and has staff and students and policies, which has a budget, and they can go from one authorizer to another. You have schools that go from districts to CSI. You can have a school go from CSI to a district. And so here we have a school going from a BOCES to a district. The sort of charter application law that we see a lot of people chatter about just doesn't, quite frankly, apply to the situation that we're dealing with now versus what the old board was dealing with 18 months ago. This is a transfer.
Any other board members want to comment on that?
Well, I know for the record that it's clear that I actually had big concerns after I really got a chance to think through that. And so at our third pass at it, I voted no against the MOU. Primarily because I wanted the more specific details that would be provided in an application to be in front of the board before we went into contract stage, not during the contract stage. And so I just felt like I needed that extra assurance that the details that were kind of hanging out there related to the previous denial were actually being addressed. And so I understand the question. There's still a question mark in my mind as to why we didn't go ahead or actually, I mean, I'm just going to be quite frank and honest. I'm just curious why there was not an application presented to the Woodland Park School District earlier in the year. I suppose with a new board coming on, there were different atmospheres and different attitudes towards that process. So I understand the timing of it, but it still was a puzzle to me.
This was all new to me. I'd never been on a school board before. So I understood the application process, and the custom is that that was to start in August. And traditionally, it ends in November. It's typically a 4-month process. So we thought that because an application had been submitted so recently that we would use that same application, evaluate that, and at the advice of experts that we would be presented with a memorandum of understanding that had already been presented recently. We thought that it may speed things up, but as it turned out, here we are nearly 6 months later, and it has taken much longer period of time where things have been much more public review, much more continuous public comment, where to the point where we've been urged to let's move on to district policy and things about our school district rather than a different school. So looking back, maybe we should have done the application process and been done in 4 months, and we would have been done 2 months ago. So I don't know. That is where my thought is on it. We're where we are. Everything has been reviewed legally as much as possible. Even a judge at district court didn't shut the process down. So I'm glad that we're at this stage of the process, even though it's taken much longer than it usually should have.
Okay, anyone else on that point? Okay, does the board plan to meet to review and discuss feedback received from the public in the May 18th public meeting prior to finalizing the contract and voting on it?
I didn't understand what he said.
So the question is, are we going to have another meeting after this meeting before we vote on the
will the
contract?
board meet to review and discuss the feedback from May 18th?
Yeah, I think each individual director will be reviewing and, thinking for themselves about the feedback that we received tonight and the questions and answers that we go over tonight. And then that will be incorporated into the vote. But I do not anticipate, and it's the board president's purview, calling a separate meeting. In fact, we cannot schedule a meeting without at least 24 hours public notice. So I don't see one happening in less time than that.
I do have a thought on that. Just to be clear, while we may not have anticipated a meeting where we could discuss the information that we're gathering this evening, and that we would have 24 hours to assimilate that information individually, I would anticipate that we will have a discussion tomorrow before the vote. And I believe, and I'm just going to hold this for myself personally, I'm going to hold the right to ask for the vote to be tabled if we, in our conversation tomorrow evening, find that there needs to be an amendment made to the contract. If there needs to be a revision to the contract based on what we have assimilated this evening in our discussion tomorrow evening, then I will reserve the right to request that this board make the necessary steps to find legal counsel and have an executive session with our legal counsel before we make the vote. I believe we can do that fairly rapidly. I don't think that that would be an artificial roadblock. And I just wanted to publicly state that I am going to reserve that right tomorrow, for tomorrow evening.
Anybody else?
Yes. There are certain questions that I still want to have answered as well. I would like to have a vigorous conversation tomorrow night before we take a vote. This is not something that I take lightly. There are a lot of families, their futures for their children on both sides of this discussion. Our community is divided on it. It pains me for the division that we have. I've met with numerous people on both sides of this. This must not be taken lightly. If there are important questions that I still have after this evening that are not answered, if they are not answered tomorrow before our vote, I will move that we postpone this vote until those questions are answered and that we have legal counsel. If I feel comfortable tomorrow night, then I will move forward.
Anybody else? Yes.
Members of the board, there are 4 questions left for the merit for the Board of Education, and then we'll shift on to questions for merit.
And I'm going to combine some of them because one's sort of been answered. Well, it has been answered. And so really we're down to the last 2. What part of supporting a charter school or chartering a school, adding a charter school, strengthens the current school system, and why the rush to do it before August? Can't Merit remain in their building one more year, allowing for adequate time to do this right in terms of the process? So how does chartering Merit strengthen the current system, and why the rush to do it before August? Why not wait a year and go through the process?
I would have to balance that out with the other side of the question. If we ask the why not side of the question, why not wait? You have to equally consider the option of why wait. If we keep pushing this, if we have our questions answered, if the issues are answered for the board, if the board of directors have honestly spoken with people of both sides of this conversation, if the school has satisfied the legal requirements of a charter school, we have hundreds of parents that their dream is to have their kids at a different school, have school choice. There are hundreds of parents that are very concerned about it. Like I said in the last answer, this is a divided community. Sometimes I wonder, though, in things like this, did this cause the division between ideology, or did this reveal the division in ideology? I have to ask that question. It doesn't exempt me from coming to a decision on behalf of the people, the voters of this district. But I just want to assure you, I'm taking everyone's that has spoken with me, what they've said, very seriously into my consideration on this answer.
Anyone else?
I'll just say that question assumes a rush. There's no rush. This is the second time in a 18-month period that Merit has come before the Woodland Park School Board in pursuit of a charter. It's been looked at endlessly by staff members, by attorneys, by different board members, and by the community. So there's simply no rush whatsoever. And I tend to think that taking a growing, thriving school and putting it within the district so that this community can participate in its growth and its direction and offer our communities a real choice is a win-win for our entire community.
Anyone else?
I'd like to add to that, that we have not rushed. The declining enrollment has been over the last 10 years, and the community has spoken out in favor of a charter school, in favor of choice, and I feel we are 10 years behind. We need to expedite this. We have looked over every document. We have consulted with legal counsel. I believe if the Woodland Park School would have 10 years ago listened to the voices of the community and how they wanted choice for their children, then we wouldn't have the need to charter Merit. It would be within these walls now. So as far as rushing into it, I don't think that's the case. I think we're at least 10 years behind. Needs to get done.
Okay. There was a question about how much debt Woodland Park inherits, and I think Brian answered that is it's none. And so the next two questions are for Merit, at least the two on my screen. There's probably more.
Tom, I'm sorry. There's a question number 36 and 37 still remain forward. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No, I think I thought they were,
Did you consolidate those?
I did.
Because there was one dynamic piece in the question that was consolidated that I would.
36 was a direct on one person that I didn't think, kind of given our rules. I guess I could say, do you believe you've been given good legal advice regarding the contract date, given that you lost in court and have a preliminary injunction against you? So I'll phrase it that way. Do you believe you've been given good legal advice regarding the contract?
Regarding what, sir?
Regarding the contract to date by the attorney, considering that you lost in court and have a preliminary injunction issued against you?
I'll just offer this. While there was an attorney who was initially drafting this contract for the district, that attorney chose to step aside from the process, and the district hired a new attorney. And the first time that we discussed the contract as a board was with her, Melissa Barber. And so I can say honestly that the only advice that we've gotten legally on the contract has been with her. And I am very impressed with her. And I believe that she's done a good job of trying to navigate the board's desires. And I think that piece needs to be clear, that she did not come with a template and a prescribed contract. What she came with was a listening ear to the desire of this board. And so much of the contract reflects the desire of the majority of the board. As we were having conversation with her, her advice to us, I believe, was exemplary.
Okay. The other question was, given that the students already have the option to continue to go to Merit if they were to stay with as a contracted school at BOCES, how do the taxpayers benefit from the approach of integrating a charter school into the district rather than just leaving things as they are?
So I'll give you a concrete example of what happened with taxpayer money, with the consequences of the previous board decision and the persistence, quite frankly, of the Merit founders. Because they operate outside of the district, within our boundaries physically, but outside of our legal structure, when they take students from the Woodland Park School District who are accepted to be enrolled in the Merit Academy, we lose that funding. A concrete example of that is special education funding. By my understanding, which was presented in a public board meeting for the UP BOCES board, Merit Academy has 14 special education students that came from the Woodland Park School District. As a result, the proportionate share of funding that flows from the UP BOCES and is divided proportionally amongst the Woodland Park School District, the Cripple Creek School District, and the Manitou Springs School District, we had a reduced share of that money. UP BOCES had to split the money up differently and reduce the share that went to Woodland Park School District. As a result, we lost money. And if you look at it a certain way, you can say our kids lost money, or our staff lost money, or our taxpayers lost money. When you bring a charter school in, you can take the 180 or the 300 students that they're going to have. Instead of that all counting outside of our district, those are counted in important financial ways within the district. And they basically can stem the tide of any further loss. So I think it is a benefit to the taxpayers. The other real issue here that we have to consider is the long-term decline in enrollment. Every one of our schools is at a 50% capacity, and the consultant hired by the superintendent has projected that enrollment will continue to decrease. You need buildings at about 80 to 90% capacity. Bringing Merit Academy in, perhaps having them share a building in our school, takes a middle school building that is at 50% capacity and brings it up to 80 to 85% capacity. That is absolutely...
Pardon my interruption. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm going to reserve my only interruption this evening, if you would mind crediting him back his minutes. In respect to the middle school, I've asked Merit not to discuss the middle school, and I would ask the same of our board, with all due respect.
I am discussing a potential possibility that is clear.
Thank you, sir.
So what I'm talking about, though, is that taxpayers pay for our buildings. We need to make sure that we are attracting students to come in and use our buildings. A potential like sharing a space with a school is one way you can do that. So that's absolutely a boon to our taxpayers.
Okay, the following questions then are for Merit. In terms of tangible data, what makes Merit Academy so successful? And actually, while you're thinking about that, I've got another easy one. Someone else can probably look at.
That question was not for us, was it?
No, that was for Merit. Yeah,
Okay.
these are not for
And
Merit.
could I, while they're thinking about that, could I address that question, the benefit to the taxpayers?
Okay.
Or are they done thinking?
How about the 1 minute special? Go.
I've asked myself that question too. What is the benefit? What is the benefit of bringing a charter school in? And I think the choice is always good. If you remember back to when Bell Telephone and AT&T owned everything, how good were the services that we had? So, I was told we're not supposed to even ask that question, that a chartering board is not supposed to consider the financial impact. Now, I've asked and asked about that. I have not seen the statute, but I still lay that out there. As a board of directors, are we allowed to consider the financial impact of chartering a school?
I mean, sure, you can consider anything. In my experience doing this, I'll just say it comes from a philosophical point of view. Boards of education of districts that authorize charter schools either sincerely believe and practice that all the kids are all the kids. All our kids are all our kids, whether they're in charters or in our district schools, or they don't. And so if you don't believe that, if a district doesn't believe that, you typically will see a bias. They're taking money from us. It's money that we don't have. When in truth, per pupil operating revenue, if If merit stays at BOCES, then that money goes to them and it stays there. If they come here, it still stays with them and they stay here. So other than mill levy and some other pass-throughs, there's some trade-off financially there, but it really comes down philosophically is to an authorizing board. Do you believe that all the students are all our students, no matter what school they go to?
Can I have the 1 minute special? I think merit benefits our community as well with they're drawing families up the pass and from other counties. That's more house sales. It's more new generations into the Woodland Park area. So we're not all senior citizens out there in 20 years trying to rescue grandma out of the snowbank. And it's a fact that our enrollment is going down. Teachers, admin staff, district staff. The reality is that we're going to have to cut the staff. Merit is growing by 40%. It can potentially keep employees within the town and grow families. And I think that's another part. It's good for our community, not a monetary benefit perhaps for Woodland Park, but for the community.
Okay. So back to our question, what makes merit successful?
Okay, I'm going to read some of this. There's an old Army saying, thanks to the Army guy next to me, that officers' appointments are ratified in the hearts of their men. Our success is ratified in the hearts of our families and our staff. This success is further validated by the oversubscription for available seats and a waiting list that continues to grow. We've added more classrooms, and it's been after the lottery, and we are still full and beyond. As far as tangible data goes, we took the CMAS, just like everyone else. We had a 97% participation rate, which is pretty good for first year. We also have, let me find them here, MAPS testing, DIBELS, and so forth. So for those who asked questions of why are we afraid of standardized testing, we're not. So here are some results we got this afternoon. Kindergarten, below benchmark, well below benchmark in the beginning was 7%, below benchmark 13%. And now, so together total it was 20%. Now we're at 13%. Benchmark or above benchmark, now we're 87% with 57% being above benchmark. Before, in the beginning of the year, it was 80%. First grade, well below benchmark and below benchmark, totaled 56.2%. 50% of the students who came to us in first grade were well below benchmark. Now, 31% with 13% well below. So we went from 50% to 13%. Benchmark or above was 43.75%. Now we're at 68.75%. That's 37% being well above benchmark. Second grade, well below benchmark and below benchmark was at 47.6% with 33% well below. Now we're at 33% with 14% well below. So we have grown. Benchmark or above was at 52.4%. Now we're at 67% with 41% being above benchmark. What grade is this? Third grade. Below or well below was 29.4% with 24% being well below. Now we're at 26% with only 14% being well below. Benchmark or above, we were at 70.5% with 24% above benchmark. Now we're at 74% with 46% being above benchmark. And I believe these are our reading scores. So well below and, let me find my stuff here. Well below went from 30% in whole to 17%. And we are now we were at 60.8% with 31.9% above benchmark. Now we're at 70% with 43% above benchmark. MAPS. We just got these right before we came over. So I'll just emphasize the RIT scores in math and reading. Kindergarten, 81% of our students increased their scores. First grade, 94% increased their scores in math and reading. Second grade, 91% of our students increased their scores in math, 86% increased their scores in reading. Third grade, 94% of our students increased their scores in math, 80% increased their scores in reading. Fourth grade, 90% of students increased their scores in math and reading. Fifth grade, 77% of our students increased their math scores and 68% increased their reading scores. I do not have the exact scores in front of me, so I can't exactly recite the change, but they have increased, and that is good. Our School of Logic, grades 6 through 8, were testing yesterday and today. Our internet went out, so they completed their testing this afternoon, and I do not have their numbers for that. Our CMAS scores will be in, just like with everybody else, in the fall.
Anybody else want to speak to that? Okay. There was some confusion. One of the questions, your October 2021 count, 230 and above, and now if you go online, it looks like 170, 180. Why the difference?
So we never had 230 full-time students. I think there's some confusion on the, I'm guessing they got this off the CDE website. We started with 184 full-time students. We're currently sitting at 170. In our homeschool enrichment programs, I don't remember what we started with, 84, and we're about at 78 now. And so there is always natural attrition due to moving, due to choice, due to whatever reason, homeschool children. So that number of 230 was never our,
Homeschoolers are half-time.
well, yeah, but the number of 230 was never our full-time student enrollment. That
So you're-
that was inclusive of
Right.
our homeschool and our Falcon Airlock.
So the best of your recollection, what was your October count, I guess is what they're asking?
184,
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're 170-ish now?
correct.
Okay. Okay, this is a yes or no. Have Merit Academy board members or representatives had discussions with the Woodland Park School District board members regarding the application and contract process outside of publicly noticed meetings? If yes, please explain.
We have never, are you asking as a board? Has our board met with
Yes.
their board?
Have your board members met with the Woodland Park board members?
No, we have never met as boards, no.
So there was discussion earlier from the WPSD board about the lawyers. And it's been a little frustrating. We got to work through the lawyers to make sure everything's legal and justified. And that's the nature of the world today. Sometimes we just wish, can we just get a cup of coffee and sit down and talk? Because we can probably solve this and several other world hunger problems in about 20 minutes. But we did work through the lawyers. We did do it properly. And we did check it against particularly the Charter School Act and all those other applicable laws.
The next question was answered, I think, in your initial response about why are you reluctant to use standardized tests? I believe your answer was we are not, and then you shared the test results. So, okay. And let's see. Can Merit explain the change of heart between the original application and the new contract draft in regards to pursuing sales tax from Woodland Park School District?
Yes, we can. Let's find our notes.
If you want to take a minute to look on that, the next question is related to that. What's the exact impact on funding for the district, which I think Brian explained pretty thoroughly, but if you want to add to it, you certainly can.
I'll answer that. Brian, you want to? I thought you had answered it pretty well in your initial comments, but it was also our understanding through this entire process that the board, considering a charter application, can consider viability, can it be successful, is there community support? The impact financially is not to be considered, and it's not something that we tallied up. I'm sure Brian has a lot more information on that than we do.
And I will relieve Merit of that. Tom, that's a new category for WPSD, and thank you, Nicole, for stepping into that one. I think their last question on the category was the one just before that, and then
Right.
shifting back to staff. Sorry to be rude, but thank you, Nicole, for trying on that one.
Okay. Brian, do you want to add anything about the exact impact on funding to the district? I think you explained it.
Well, I addressed specifically to the questions about sales tax and mill levy override funding. And Mr. Weston, you addressed a little bit earlier the philosophy, the overall philosophy of funding pupils across the district. And I think it's important to understand that next year's funded pupil count is just, as I mentioned earlier, $9,120 per pupil estimated. And as we're looking across the district, students moving back and forth are each carrying that dollar amount with them. So as I look at building the district budget for the existing 5 schools and seeing a projection that approximately additional 70 funded pupils are expected to move from Woodland Park schools to Merit Academy next year, that's times 9,120, that's another $638 of funding moving with those students. So the board has to embrace a philosophical question. Yeah, the funded pupil count will look higher in the future, but we'll have more schools. And so it's a redistribution of that additional $600,000 next year. And on top of what was estimated a year ago of about 86 Woodland Park School District students moving into Merit for this year, you add those things together, and that's a $1.3 million change to the district budget before the sales tax and mill levy override.
Okay, thank you.
Distributions.
So it sort of comes down to, again, in terms of funding, does a community believe a parent has the right to choose this school or that school, knowing that the funding follows that student? And so that's kind of what it comes down to. That takes care of my questions that I had. We tried to consolidate, except for Dr. Neal.
I think you've missed one. Sorry.
What number?
There is a number 125 or cell number 1 or row number 127. Apologies.
125?
Question numbered 125 or
One,
cell
two.
number 127 or row number 127.
Oh, you're right. I missed it. Okay, here it is. And this is for Woodland Park School District. So anyone and maybe, well, can the contract be modified to say that if Merit receives unused district space to use for its purposes, it forfeits any sales tax and mill levy funds? Those funds are largely to maintain district buildings. Seems unfair they wouldn't have to share the burden of that maintenance cost.
Well, I did not clearly, I guess, address that one earlier. Ultimately, it's up to the board and Merit to negotiate and modify the contract. So those two entities would have to decide if that's an appropriate, I guess, direction. That the forfeiture of mill levy funds would not apply because statutorily the charter school is going to receive mill levy override dollars on a per pupil basis, not on a space or square footage basis. The sales tax funds, as I described earlier, are not statutorily allocated on any basis. So I suppose if the entities wanted to discuss that on a space or square footage basis, they could. But right now, for consistency, we're planning on a per pupil distribution of sales tax revenue. I hope that helps answer that.
Okay. And then there was one other 123 there, which I might be able to shed a little light on, and you can expound. Why does the current contract put Woodland Park School District in the position of potentially taking on the burden of filling in the gaps, shortcomings, and oversights of Merit Academy's infrastructure plan, such as food service, transportation, building needs, oversight practices, record keeping, et cetera? I will tell you, and just please add to it, a lot of those are buyback services. If they want to do transportation, they can buy that back from the district. Food services, same thing. We had a situation, one of my districts, they even paid for some legal counsel, actually, for a while from the district. So a lot of that are buyback things that they would have to do, but go ahead and expound if you'd like.
Let's see. Well, I guess my response there is if Merit doesn't meet projections really in any regard, whether it's number of pupils, overstaffing, understaffing, whatever it is, it's not going to be up to the district to micromanage that. It will be up to the school. And so if they don't meet the targeted break-even points of, let's say it's 240 students that are necessary to meet their compensation projections, then they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to do what the district is faced with, and that's adjust staffing, adjust programming, make changes, reductions, additions, whatever it is. That will be on that organization to operate and change.
Tom, was the question saying that the contract requires the school district to fill the gaps on something?
It assumed that was going to happen.
I mean, the contract doesn't require the school district to fill the gaps on anything. And quite frankly, it's presuming something, as the superintendent has already made clear, it's sort of presuming a maintenance and facility agreement that has not been settled or approved or anything. So it's basically built on a faulty assumption.
Right.
But as Brian has already made clear, the sort of basic up and down on the contract is that Merit is responsible for their costs and the school district is responsible for our costs. And if there were a situation where there's sort of a sharing of costs, then that is something that could be negotiated in a way to protect both the school and the school district and the taxpayer money. And both the school district and the charter school are funded by taxpayer money. So that was something that would be worked out on a case-by-case basis as needed, and that would generally fall to the school's representatives and the administration to really allocate how that's going to be done.
Mr. Illingworth, thank you for that. And again, apologies earlier if I've overstepped my bounds and interrupted. Really trying to keep to the rules of no facilities and appreciate you holding back on that earlier. Thank you. I think, is that it, Tom?
By my count, it is. So we can move to public comment. I will note for you, it is 7:42. Our goal is, maybe, we'll see, we walk out about 8:30. You saw me kind of doing the 2-1 thing. I'll probably try and do that a little bit. So again, public comment is not question to Merit or to the board or superintendent. It is literally just comment, just your thought. 1 to 3 minutes, total time allotted 45 minutes. And so you want, Dr. Day, you want the line up? Do you want me to?
Right, so I've got 8 here, so I think we should be in good shape.
Okay.
We do have a reserved spot for the District Accountability Committee. I think I'd spoken to all board members or tried to beforehand. So the District Accountability Committee has met, reviewed the contract, and they have a prepared statement. And then I, with all due respect, am going to excuse the hot seat of both Merit and my staff. And as these are comments directly to the board, before we go, members of the Board of Education, do you have any other further questions for Merit or my staff?
No, but thank you very much for being here tonight. I really appreciate all the hard work that the WPSD staff has had, and I appreciate the collaboration that and the hard work that Merit Academy staff has done as well. Thank you so much.
I have a clarifying question for Mr. Gustafson. First of all, thank you for all your hard work. When you talk about the distribution of the sales tax in a per pupil manner, is there something that is addressed prior to that distribution of the sales tax per pupil funding to Merit Academy? Do we pay off something first?
Yes, yeah. Thank you for that clarification. So the numbers that I quoted are net of the debt service, the annual debt service on certificates of participation that the district will pay first, about $700,000 a year out of a $2.9 million gross sales tax revenue next year. Drops that down to 2.2, and then that's distributed over the entire funded pupil count, Woodland Park School District plus Merit Academy. And working the math the other way in dividing it up first, and then also allocating the certificate of participation over the funded pupil count, it comes to the same number. So.
And Brian,
yeah,
that COP falls off in 11 years?
2036.
Thank you.
Yeah, does that help you?
Yeah, and that is in the contract,
Correct.
the stipulation. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll invite public comment. Again, just a reminder, courteous, professional, appropriate language, no attacks, no single person out. And I think what I'll do just to ease, I'll go 2, 1, 0, and then you'll know your 3 minutes is up.
And then, Tom, on this one is, would we discuss ahead of time, is the District Advisory Committee will be the only group that is not limited to the 3 minutes, as they are the legislated, called out in law, statutory advisement group to the board. That being said, on deck, after the DAC is first name Aaron, last name Marnie. After Aaron Marnie is Aaron O'Connell. After Aaron O'Connell is Kim Morris. And then after Kim Morris is Sharon Langhart.
And is this our DAC?
This is our DAC, yes,
Okay.
sir.
You want to get really close to that, I think.
Sure. Okay. Oh, thank you. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Neal, members of the Woodland Park School District leadership, and Merit Academy leadership. We, the members of the District Accountability Committee, have been duly empowered by state statute to provide advice and feedback to the board on important and financial matters. We stand before you this evening as the appointed representatives of this legal advisement body to provide you with our formal opinion of the contracting for Merit Academy. We have reviewed, studied, collaborated, obtained district legal counsel, and come together to present this evening a statement to provide you our formal thoughts as this appointed parent and community advisement body to the board.
It is our deep expectation that you heed our comments and respect our perspectives as your advisor and as the global representation of the diversity of thought as stated within your own policy. To this end, we have collaborated and voted upon 6 very distinctive factors that we believe must be resolved prior to the signing of any contract with Merit.
Statement number 1. We are most notably concerned that the development of the contract has been rushed and lacks the necessary due process to convey transparency that ultimately is necessary for such a notable commitment of opening the first ever charter school through the Woodland Park School District.
Statement number 2, we are most notably concerned that the WPSD board is not providing adequate fiscal oversight and protection to district-run schools with the proposed allocation of sales tax revenues. We believe financial conservativeness is necessary to keep the district fiscally stable. The district has a choice to or not to relinquish sales tax revenue, and we believe financial conservativeness is necessary to keep the district fiscally stable.
Statement number 3, we are concerned that the MOU states that, quote, the essential elements of the previous charter application will be incorporated in the resulting charter contract, end quote. Yet there are marked differences between the original application and the current iteration of the contract. This contract does not reflect the language of the actual MOU. Specifically, differences from the original application include transfer of sales tax revenue, length of the contract term, merit facility planning, grade levels served, and relinquishment of academic assessment responsibilities.
So statement number 4, 5, and 6, while not as large as these preceding concerns, remain notable concerns of the District Accountability Committee. And here's statement number 4. It is a concern that the contract sections 10.2 and 10.3 favor an assumption that the lease agreement is a foregone conclusion. These assumptions are neither appropriate in their vagueness nor favorable to the interest of protecting district capital assets. These should align to state statute obligations.
Statement number 5, we have a general concern that the procedure for Merit's enrollment lottery outlined in the contract may not have adequate oversight or transparency and therefore not ensure access for all students.
Statement number 6, finally, we feel there is a lack of equal academic tracking and accountability if Merit is allowed to misalign testing obligations to that of the district.
We do not wish ill will upon Merit, nor do we overtly believe that a charter school or choice is bad for Teller County students. We do, however, request the board to revisit these issues prior to voting on this contract. Thank you.
Aaron Marnie,
I do have a question, Dr. Neal. Will we be provided with those statements from the DAC? Because I have not seen them. I was at the meeting last night, but
They are the same statements from last evening, but I'd be glad to forward those. Kershid, if you would mind forwarding me the email from the DAC, that would be
I
great.
would like to receive a copy of that.
No
please.
problem. We can do that this evening.
I'm not Aaron Marney. I'm Joseph Marney, speaking for the both of us this evening.
I'm going to let you pull that mic up just a little bit. The previous ladies were a little bit shorter, all due respect.
Apologies.
Thank you, sir.
How's that? There's much to say, and thankfully, I'm known for my brevity of language, which is a joke to anyone who's seen me write. It's funny that we have had a charter school moderator here from out of town this evening, but we have no charter school. Yet none of the parents of the children of this district can come forward and have additional questions answered this evening, nor have we ever been invited into a two-way public conversation despite begging for it. And by funny, I mean not funny. With due respect to those who have given their time and energy this evening, this meeting is a farce. To schedule a town hall soliciting feedback on an item which you plan to vote upon the next day is an even worse kick in the face to the public at this point. If you had any respect for this community, such a meeting would have taken place weeks ago, and all legitimate questions would be addressed well in advance of any vote.
2 minutes.
I met with a board member last week and asked this question. If you were the new president of a failing business because you were losing all of your customers to a competitor, what is the first thing that you would do? You would find out what your competitor is doing right, that you are not. I asked several weeks ago to the board via email why our board had not met with the administrators and staff of the Manitou School District, to whom we have lost many students, why they have not met and asked that question. This proposed contract relies on a key factor, the failure of Woodland Park District schools to gain and retain students. The so-called facilities plan, which accounts for a loss, not growth, of middle school students, illustrates this most clearly. By way of metaphor, the board came upon a person who is bleeding, to whom it is their express responsibility to help. Instead of helping them, they ignored their pleas, stole their wallet, moved into their house, and made sure to kick dirt in their face as they stepped over their suffering body. Not only is this board ignoring their duty to stop the bleeding of our students to other school districts, they are being opportunistic of that fact to push forward their own agenda. To be clear, you are not promoting school choice when you are intentionally hamstringing existing district schools. You have failed in due diligence in regards to this contract as well as the pending lease. This only serves to create additional work for new board members to undo and unravel following your imminent recall. You have made your short tenancy of this board not about the legitimate pursuit of adding a charter
Since you have it
school
written down.
into our district.
You can have your full amount of time, but I need to stop real quick. And you can start over, and you do not have your time restricted at all.
Okay.
We need to not have any public outburst whatsoever. We've been polite to everyone until now, and it needs to not continue. Please show respect to everyone equally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You have your full time.
I'm good. You have made your short tenancy of this board not about the legitimate pursuit of adding a charter school into our district, which is a worthwhile discussion for a healthy district, but rather the failure of accountability to your community, for whom I must remind you, you serve. I ask for nothing today. That is a pointless pursuit. I'm here today to assure those who have pushed their agenda at the expense of our children that your reckoning is coming and your time is short. Teller County is growing, Woodland Park is growing, and with that will come families looking for quality education for their children. You may have lost hope and faith in our schools, but this community has not. I look forward to the expansion of district schools, which protect our children, inspire curiosity in place of ideology, and prepare students to enter their world and pursue their endeavors with honesty, integrity, and accountability. Thank you.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Aaron O'Connell, Kim Morris, Sharon Langhart, and then Anne Marie Friesma.
Taller than me, Jill. Can you hear me all right? Okay. All right. I'm going to start by saying again that I am for school choice. I'm also for fulfilling unused facility space. My own children went to a charter school. I am not against charter schools. But I'm also for transparency, honesty, and moral courage. While I appreciate the efforts Merit has made to give educational choice, I do not believe that chartering them with the speed at which you are trying to do it is a benefit to Woodland Park, only to Merit. It was said that Merit is responsible for their own debt. This is a misleading statement. If Merit is getting funds from the mill levy and sales tax, and then they use those funds to pay down their debt, WPSD is clearly taking responsibility for it. It was also said that charter schools can waiver out of transportation needs. Though that may be, lack of transportation is a typical barrier for marginalized communities. This has the effect of preventing marginalized students from enrolling in those schools. It was stated that Merit's free and reduced lunch percentage was low. And then while they attributed that to donations and low-cost field trips, I encourage them to look at data that shows the correlation between low FRL and the lack of transportation.
2 minutes.
Someone also said this is done all the time. Charter schools convert to new authorizers all the time. That is not what is happening. This is a contract school converting to a charter school. This is a process that I don't think, at least in Colorado, has ever been done. So for anyone to sit up there and say this is just another in a long line of transfers is inaccurate. It was also interesting that your unbiased moderator took it upon himself to remove the question that mentioned you have a preliminary injunction against you for violating the open meeting laws. Just an observation. Merit's enrollment numbers show an 8% drop in their first year. Over the last 4 years, Woodland Park School District has had an average of a 7% drop, and that includes 2 years of COVID. Before that, it was 4%. So if they're using high enrollment and less loss than WPSD, again, misleading and non-factual.
1 minute.
From a strictly taxpayer standpoint, you are considering investing in a corporation that has or is doing the following. Oh, and another note, a lot of my questions that I submitted were not even asked here tonight. I thought they would be, so I wrote them down. They have received loans to pay off loans. They have loans with balloon payments, which are extraordinarily risky. In Merit's 5-year budget projection, it shows a large loan being paid off to TBK over the period of 5 years. However, the balloon payment is due in 2. So this budget is both inaccurate and misleading. They have obtained loans using a fraudulent designation of the type of organization they are. It is well known that loans for nonprofits are harder to obtain. This problem seems to have been circumvented by them stating they were a for-profit corporation on their largest loan. Again, unethical at best, fraudulent at worst. They have withheld information on their financials from our district financial team. I was the one who notified the district of their loans from ER BOCES. Not Merit, it was me. The board listened to a group of people calling themselves the taxpayers. This group stated on the record that none of them had interest or dealings with Merit, yet one of them signed a $250,000 check to Merit and then a subsequent check.
Time.
Again, misleading and doesn't construe full transparency. May I finish my last sentence? Okay. Tomorrow, you're making a decision on a company with less than a year of finances, student retention, testing scores, who has inaccurately obtained funding, held back details from your financial team in the district. So to me, yes, this is about finance, but it's also about the fact you are looking to charter a school that hasn't been accountable to their original application or maintained full transparency. And then again, I know transparency isn't really a priority to you, but it still is to us.
Kim Morris, and I mispronounced your name the other night, so I'm just going by Kim from now on.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And then after Kim is Sharon Langhart, Anne Marie Friesma, and Micah Wright.
I have been a Woodland Park School District parent and active volunteer for 8 years. I do not have a problem with our district chartering Merit Academy. Let me repeat that. I do not wish to keep Merit Academy from being chartered by our district board. What I do want is for Merit Academy to, quote, submit an original application and accorded every opportunity to be fairly and fully considered within the standard charter application process, unquote. I just quoted the now infamous MOU. The very MOU that was found by a court of law to have been voted on in secret this past January, rubber stamp voted on in February, and finally re-voted on in April. This very MOU states that, quote, the essential elements of the previous charter application will be incorporated in the resulting charter contract, end quote. What constitutes essential elements? One would assume finances, including revenue and debt, facility, change in contract terms, and grade levels served would qualify, all of which have changed dramatically. For example, Merit previously stated in their application on page 64, quote, while Merit Academy will not receive portion of Woodland Park School District's sales tax revenue, the school will support the WPSD Board of Education in efforts to maintain the much-needed sales tax for overall district health. Now Merit wants over $300,000 in district sales tax per year for themselves. Further, on page 101, Merit's application states, quote, Merit Academy will begin the process of obtaining grant funding and loan approval to build a permanent structure suited to support our 5-year projected enrollment numbers. It continues on to, quote, discussions have already been had with several landowners and managers in Teller County. This facility will include a minimum of 28 classrooms, a science lab, a library, a gym, cafetorium, office space for houses to 8 small offices, a faculty lounge, and a conference room. There will be no impact on Woodland Park School District taxpayers to build this facility. End quote. We now know this is not Merit's intent. I impose on the board to require a new application to charter Merit Academy, one that represents where Merit is at today, to be followed by a new contract, one that equally represents the best interest of our district as a whole, without vague language that the school may request the district board without vague language that clearly favors Merit. For example, 10.2 and 10.3, which states, quote, the parties agree that the school may request the district board and superintendent to allow it to locate the school at a district facility, and such permission will not be unreasonably withheld. And, quote, if use of a facility is rendered impractical by any cause whatsoever, the district will look favorably towards allowing Merit Academy the use of underutilized district facilities until such time as the impracticability condition is corrected. Please consider the long-term effects of your decisions in the coming weeks. Further, please act accordingly on the public's concerns presented to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Morris. Sharon Langhart, Anne-Marie Farisma, Micah Wright, and then Tim Howell.
You know, having been part of the school district for 32 years, I really thought, like last night, I could go to Merit and watch a wonderful program. Tomorrow night, I'm going to go watch the band at the middle school. Last week, I saw Woodland Park Middle School take first place with their Odyssey group up at Elitch's. And what my problem is, they've already talked to you about the 2 contracts. There is a massive disparity. We listened to Mr. Gustafson. All of a sudden, you know, we're millions of dollars that are coming out of our pocket. And I'm talking our children in Woodland Park School District. I don't think it's unreasonable. They are a contract school. They need to provide it. I read the contract, all 89 pages of it. I had 19 questions.
2 minutes.
And I don't like being 2-minuted, but I had 19 questions on it. A lot of them weren't part of this. When I came down to it, I thought about having a woman on a school board. I'm telling you, when I was in school, women did not serve on a school board, let alone have an active, vital
We can't allow an attack on an individual member of the school board.
Okay, it's not a direct attack, positive or negative.
Okay.
It's a wonderful thing. It's just like, I'm not attacking merit.
Okay.
What I'm asking the board to do is look and compare and take a contract school that they have given an MOU to, look at the money that it's going to cost the school district, what we're going to realize, and maybe my assumption when I voted was that every member of my school board for the last 32 years represented every student in my school, not 8%, which is what we are representing and have been arguing about for 6.5 months.
1 minute.
8% of the total school population of Merit and Woodland Park School District. Have you taken into account, have you talked to parents? What is our problem? You know, before I even knew there was a problem, I talked. Guess what the biggest complaint was? You know why they're going to Merit? Because every single month, parents have to figure out where to put their kids 9 days a month. But the school board's never taken it. I think you need to read the contract. I think Merit needs to be held accountable before the contract signed, not after. Oh, we'll give you our financials, we'll give you our everything. But after? That doesn't make sense, guys.
Time.
So I appreciate you being here. I know that certain members didn't get to see their children sing. I know this is hard. But what I'm asking is, Merit's not going to be in our school, middle school, high school, any other school, because we don't have the time. So why not make them accountable before you sign a contract
Time.
and represent the other 92%?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nygaard.
Thank you.
Anne Marie, how do you say your last name? I keep.
Friesema.
Friesema?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Anne Marie Friesema, and I've lived in Woodland Park for 20 years. I have 6 kids. My husband and my daughter graduated from Woodland Park High School, and my son is a sophomore here. At one time, all 6 of my kids and many of our foster kids at various times have attended all 5 schools in Woodland Park School District. And I've taught in this district. I love this town, and I have so many friends and family here. And I am committed to making it a place where my kids and your kids can thrive. I want to talk about 2 things that are important to our community's culture as you consider chartering Merit. The first one is school choice, and the second is our desire as Merit Academy to partner with you. I'm the Director of Student Support at Merit Academy. This year, I've had the coolest privilege of creating a culture and support system for all our students at Merit that are outside of the box learners. And it's been an incredible ride. I can promise you that a year ago, the staff at Merit had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. What a challenging year it has been to start a new school.
2 minutes.
Last August feels like 5 years ago. We are so tired, but we have no regrets. We are creating a place where families in Teller County who want another choice can send their kids to experience school a little differently. And why shouldn't they have a choice? Each Merit family has a different reason for why they choose Merit. For some, it was smaller class size. For some, it was core knowledge curriculum. And for others, maybe it was the appeal of a different approach to learning and discipline. Most of the students at Merit right now live within the boundaries of Woodland Park School District. Last year, they went to their neighborhood school in Woodland Park School District. These kids are your kids. They play soccer and club football and play at the park with your kids. They are your kids' classmates and friends last year. Their parents just wanted a different choice. An important thing that I try to do in my life is to believe that other people are doing the best they can. I started working really hard to believe that about people after that belief saved my marriage.
1
We
minute.
may not have done everything just right in our dream to start a charter school. And we have hurt, if we have hurt anyone along the way, we are sorry. That was not our intent. We are human and we make mistakes. I hope that we can believe that everyone here is doing the best that they can. And I hope that you can believe that we too are doing the best that we can. We desire to be a choice for families. We desire to be good neighbors and good friends to your kids. And we want to partner with you and share space with you and enhance opportunities for all of the district kids, not just the ones at Merit. We want to add to the appeal of Woodland Park School District. I promise you it was never anyone's intent to take away or make things harder for you. We just want a different choice for kids in this district. My hope is that one day very soon, we will all learn to support each other and believe that everyone involved is truly doing the best they can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Marie. I have Micah Wright, Tim Howell, and then Carol Greenstreet. I have a question mark on whether Carol was still going to be able to be here or not. Carol, are you still in the room? Okay, so it looks like you are still here.
Good evening, school board. Thank you for hearing me out. First, I'd like to thank you for the excellent work you've done so far. I'm very appreciative, and my family is appreciative for the incredible work you've done. And I'm a parent of children at Merit Academy. Before that, they went to Summit Elementary. I was actually very happy with Summit Elementary, but there was something really important missing in that equation, and that was choice. When we were presented the choice to send our children to Merit Academy, we were extremely excited, and our excitement has been verified and confirmed over the last year with our children attending this new school. A real community effort, something that came literally out of just the wishes of parents and with the support of you, an excellent school board. So thank you very much. I'm here to voice my support for Merit Academy, and I really hope that you guys will continue, or that you will charter Merit Academy. I think it's an excellent and amazing opportunity, really a landmark, something that I didn't think was possible could happen for a community to come together, create a new school. I'm just a midwit. I know just enough to know that I know nothing, but with my personal experience with my children over the last year at Merit Academy, I am beyond excited with the results. And it was great to hear some information about the standardized testing that we got tonight. And I'm looking forward to hearing more. I know that they don't have all of their numbers in yet. I don't believe any of the schools in the school district have all of the numbers, but I'm excited to hear more. And it was interesting also to me tonight to hear the perspective voiced of all of the children in the school district being our children. And I hope that Merit Academy can become our children as a community. Thank you.
You guys are about the same height, so that microphone works. Thank you.
All right. Well, my name is Tim Howell. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment tonight. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done and thank everyone here for all the work. My goodness, listening to all these comments, it's apparent that there's been a lot of thought and a lot of excitement that's gone into preparing thoughts and comments and questions. I'm here as a dad of kids that are at Merit School currently. My wife Megan's back here with me, and I'm just wanting to thank you for what you're looking into and considering Merit as a charter school. I hear a lot of financial questions tonight, and it does make me a little sad as a father of 4 kids that are going to school to think of the price tag that's put over their head. I live here in Woodland Park. I pay taxes. I pay taxes everywhere I go. And, you know, it makes me a little sad to think of just it being looked at from a dollar figure instead of looked at what's best for the kids in our area, in our district. My wife and I were faced with a choice, and we had to decide if we wanted to leave our kids in Woodland Park, put them in Merit once we found out about Merit, or put them in CSCS, or move to the Springs. And at one point we were very seriously talking about moving to the Springs.
2 minutes.
But we love Woodland Park. You know, I didn't have dinner tonight, so I know it's a little silly, but I've been thinking about restaurants as I was sitting back there. And there's a lot of restaurants in a lot of cities. And what's interesting is a lot of them are actually owned by the same corporations. I know here in Woodland Park, we have some wonderful restaurants that are all owned by the same person, people, family, I'm not sure. Why is that? Why are there multiple different, why do we have a barbecue restaurant and Asian restaurants and Chinese restaurants and other restaurants in town? Why don't we just make one restaurant really big? And the reason is because different people like different food at different times. I know that's a silly analogy, but at the same point, choice matters. For our children, Merit was the right choice. We've seen them all academically grow. It's been a major blessing to them. And as you consider your vote tomorrow, I ask you to consider chartering Merit. I would love for them to be back in the Woodland Park School District and be part of that again. It's a little hard having them in the same community, but yet separate from so many things. It would be wonderful to have them part of the whole community and knowing that everyone's looking out for the kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, that's okay. I think you're next. And then we have closing comments by the Woodland Park School District Board and closing comments by the Merit School Board.
Good evening. When our children started in public schools in 1966, we came face to face with children who lived in poverty, got to attend school if they got themselves to the bus stop, and the teachers who cared deeply for these children. In the past year, I've learned about the impact of childhood trauma on the development of children and how difficult it can be for family, foster parents, and teachers who work with these children. One of my resources in that is a Merit teacher. We have many children in our district who fit into these categories. There are many families in our community that are surviving, not thriving. These parents will not be at school board meetings. They likely don't come to conferences with teachers, and they don't have it in their wheelhouse to check into Merit Academy and fill out an application. Without intention, Merit Academy selects out these families as they will never apply. These are the students who would come to school without supplies or educational support at home. The Merit contract also allows Merit to deny enrollment to special needs students whose needs cannot be reasonably accommodated there.
2 minutes.
Clearly, we want a student to be in a school that's best suited for their needs. My point in all of this is that students require different levels of resources from our schools for their education. I am concerned about the financial decision to share all revenues equally with Merit Academy. I understand the state provides extra dollars to support special education. However, it also does not cover the actual cost. While I know Merit has special needs students and an excellent director, they will not have an equivalent number of these students or share in high needs children. They will not have the children in our community that do not have educational support at home. They will not have an equivalent share of children that require more resources to educate, yet they share equally in the money provided to Woodland Park School District for education.
1 minute.
And are allowed to solicit donations and retain the full amount. My second concern is the lack of protection for our fund balance. Fiscally conservative Board of Education members, administrators, and especially Brian Gustafson have ensured fiscal protection for this district by ensuring a healthy fund balance. There is no provision to restrict this or future boards from using district fund balance to meet Merit's needs. I would ask you to put that in the contract. My third concern is the bias of this Board of Education. The majority of this board ran on chartering Merit and have doggedly pursued this. It is difficult to imagine they could protect the interests of the district in this contract. It feels like a contract negotiated between two parties who have the same one interest. I would implore you to listen to the people in this audience and community and consider this contract thoroughly. A couple of weeks ago, you guys put off discussing a report that didn't even require a vote for a week so that you could be better prepared for discussion. And yet 24 hours after public comment, you're willing to make a vote on this. I would ask you to seriously listen, think, and consider the things that have been said tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Members of the Merit Board, if you would regain your seats, please. Members of the Woodland Park School District Board, if you would have any direct questions for the Merit Board, if you guys wouldn't mind taking a few questions, that would be great. And if you have any further questions for the Merit team before we close the evening, that would be great. Mr. Rusterholz, anything for the Merit Board?
First of all, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate hard work. Even when I agree or disagree with people, I appreciate the passion, the push, and I truly do appreciate that about you. The concern that I've heard from many of the people across the county, the district, that I've had coffee with, many of them, one of their concerns is that, are you a viable school? Will you be able to educate your children as equally as well here? And can you show that you're educating the kids that well? That's one of the many things that I've been asked at coffees. So if you'd like to address that, the concern is comparing. How will you be able to compare to the education and the quality that the kids would be having here at WPSD?
Absolutely, and thank you guys very much for inviting us back on the stage to address some of these questions tonight. I think that Dr. Pekron made quite a good presentation of standards that we are following. We are testing, just like the WPSD does. And once we are chartered, should that be the direction that we go, we will be part of the WPSD. So it won't be WPSD and Merit. We are all one family. We are all the same kids in this community. That is how we feel. Do you want to elaborate on any of the testing? How are we viable? Our viability in the first year is something that I don't know any other charter applicant has had. We have a year under our belt. We know we are viable because of the feedback we have received from our families, the feedback we have seen through the testing of our children, the retention of our staff, and our growth next year. Numbers will come because we have to wait until October to get the CMAS testing. These are not available, nor are they ever available to a new charter applicant. So we actually have more information on how we are viable and how we are serving this community through our school. So the question of, are they viable? Yeah, we are, and we've proven it this year.
Can I ask just one more question? I'm just butting in here real quick. We've heard over and over again about Merit being able to provide to all the children of the community. At this point in your story, you are not providing transportation for the children. There are children whose parents can't drop them off there. So could you once again just address, do you have plans? I know you're legally not obligated to provide transportation and food for the kids, lunches for the kids. So could you please address that?
Sure. You can't do everything on day one. We would love to provide transportation, whether we do that through Durham Bus Services, through a separate contract, whether, as Mr. Gustafson indicated, it becomes a pay-for-play type situation. We partner with the district. There may be economies of scale that may be useful there to both institutions. We'd love to get there, and we will eventually. But service is more than just buses and food. As we began this journey a couple of years ago, serving lower income students was one of our primary motivations as we designed Merit Academy. When we reviewed community needs in the last 20 years of student demographics, we were struck by the decline. And we reviewed as best we could where these students were already opting to be educated. We realized that the options available at the time all required parents and families to commit additional resources above and beyond what they already provided through taxes. These resources included requiring money for private education, time and money for homeschool, or the drive time and gas money to travel down the pass to receive a different option. This did not seem very equitable to us. Not all families have this option. Many families of all varieties in Teller County already work multiple jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Why should families' desired choices not be covered by the taxes that they and their neighbors already pay? Thus, we wanted to ensure that Merit Academy would be a public school option, serving as many families who wanted the choice of a classical core knowledge option as we could.
Thank you. Other board members?
You must have something.
Yeah, I have a question. And it ties to actually, honestly, like some of my opening statements.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Yep, sorry. It tied actually to some of my opening statements and answering some of the questions related to how some of the reasons for the denial have been addressed. And to honor our parameters here, Dr. Neal, this is not specific about Woodland Park Middle School. This is, however, a question about facility related to your projected numbers. Like I said, I still have some big questions about if you were not able to move into Woodland Park Middle School this year, do you have a plan B if your numbers increase from the 170 to what you're projecting? And that's my question to you related to facilities and your plan B.
Trying to stay within the parameters of not discussing facilities.
Sorry, this one's a tough one. Thank you, everyone, for the courtesy. I appreciate it.
Dr. Neal, I will defer to your request of us prior to this meeting and say respectfully, facilities were not to be discussed tonight.
Just in all due respect, it is one of the issues for denial. It is a question that has to be resolved within the contract phase of the MOU. It is a question that I have as a standing board member who will vote on the authorizing of Merit Academy. So I would like to take some license, not specific to the middle school and the lease, but specific to your plans related to facility, if in fact a facility within the Woodland Park School District infrastructure is not available to you.
So there is space where we are now, up above, but I want to address something as well. Most or all of the facility questions we've had have been answered, and this will be answered with this. Throughout the past 16 months, we were approached by many different community members with a common theme that the district has had talks of closing a school due to declining enrollment and burdensome maintenance and operation costs for 10 years now. During our initial application, we, along with most others in the nation, carried an assumption that the COVID-driven decline in student enrollment would rebound. This assumption has not come to pass at the national, state, or local level. Local taxpayers also expressed at times quite adamantly, as you have seen, people can be adamant, that they do not want PPR funds, much less a bond or a mill levy, to go towards construction of a new school in town. Many people told us it would be fiscally irresponsible of us to build another building, paying those tax dollars to construction and land rather than utilizing a current public school building that is already bought and paid for by taxpayer funds for the sole purpose of providing a place for public education for public students. Now, charter applications are meant as a blueprint, a jumping off point. As many authorizers and liaisons will tell you, the contract is where those conditions or those changes, those negotiations and those agreements take place. The contract is the charter itself, not the application. Given that our school's core, who we are, is very much outlined in that application and in practice today, as an up and running school requesting a transfer, not a plan on paper charter applicant. Given the continued declining enrollment in the district, the overwhelming burden on taxpayers to pay for empty classrooms, and the shift in boards to focus on fiscal responsibility while also attending to the community's desire for the very school choice that our state and our governor so widely support, it seemed more prudent to look at the feasibility of current facility usage than funnel local taxpayers' schools' funds to a landlord or construction company.
Thank you for the answer. A clarifying question, if I may. You mentioned that there is space where you're at. Okay. And that's really at the heart of it. Like, if you were to grow, you would have space.
We have some.
We have never put all of our eggs in one basket, and we do not intend to do so now. So, yes, we have options.
Okay.
Other members of the board, other questions?
Is Merit Academy a for-profit corporation?
No. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. There is one word in a loan document that somebody spent a lot of time reading through, other than our lender, who sent me an email a while ago addressing this. Hi, Nicole. Sorry for the inconvenience, but we have verbiage in the loan document stating that Merit Academy is a for-profit corporation. That was the default language in the Laser Pro loan forms, and we missed changing it to not-for-profit. This language has no bearing on Merit's loan agreement or tax status. We understand that Merit Academy is a not-for-profit entity and have received your 501c3 entity documentation. This was an oversight by TBK Bank. Again, sorry for any inconvenience. We are a non-profit. Period.
Would you mind being able to enter that email like into the record by providing it to the superintendent so that it can be available to the public for inspection?
Absolutely. I can give you my copy, or I can email it to you later.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is Merit Academy going bankrupt?
No, we are not. We are very fiscally sound.
Have you done any sort of comparison of Merit Academy's financials compared to what you understand about the school district's financials? Is there any sort of way to compare that?
Somewhere, yes. Hold on a
Yes,
second.
we have.
I gotta find it. Okay. Merit owes $125,000 to ER BOCES as seed funding, paid $2,000 a month until paid. And TBK Bank we owe less than $485,000 amortized over a 7-year period with rollover annually, just like the district's COP. This equates to $118,000 per year, which, if we do not include annual grants, donations, or other unreliable, what is the word you use? Unforecasted or one-time revenues, this averages 2.91% for all annual debt to revenue payments. So 2.91% for our debt to our annual revenues, not including grants, donations, or unforecasted revenues. If you compare that to the COP debt for the district and the district's 2022 revenue stream, which this also averages 2.98% average debt to revenue payment annually. It seems Merit is on par with a healthy financial portfolio. According to CRS 22-30.5-104 4.5a, district leases and financial obligations of a charter school shall not constitute debt or financial obligations of the school district unless the school district specifically assumes such obligations, which they have not.
Does Merit Academy turn away special education students?
No. We are not allowed to ask if a child is on an IEP, a 504, anything before admission. Our lottery is blind. Every student is assigned a VIN number. We don't even know names, I don't think, when we go through it, or we know names, but it is a very regimented process to make sure that all students are afforded an equal chance of admission into our school. And no, we do not turn away special education students. There is a difference between severe needs and other special education students. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Do you
Yep,
want
I've got it.
Okay,
Mhm.
you want to take it?
Okay, I'm just going to read this out because it comes from our contract, which is also approved. It falls in line with Colorado state statutes. If deemed appropriate, the IEP team may confer with staff at the student's previous school and shall make a determination whether the student can receive a free, appropriate public education, a FAPE, in the least restrictive environment at the school and its existing programs with or without reasonable accommodations. Manitou, Cripple Creek, and Woodland Park also do this through BOCES. If the screening team deems it appropriate, the school in collaboration with the district or BOCES shall convene a complete IEP team to make the final determination. If the determination is that FAPE is not available, as is often determined also with Cripple Creek, Manitou, and Woodland Park, the district's application for admission shall be denied. Every student who is admitted with an IEP from the previous school shall be placed directly on a program that meets the requirements of such IEP unless and until a review of staffing by the IE team is held and the IEP is changed. In this, the school pays to the district a per pupil cost to cover fees for districts who reside in the district boundaries and who require center-based or more dedicated alternative programming for that FAPE. If said student is a student of another district other than WPSD, that student will be served by the home district. This is a very common partnership and practice among district authorizers and charter schools.
Gwen, do you have any experience with the Woodland Park School District?
None. I was a counselor in the district from 1998 to 2001, 2 maybe. I served on the task force in 2012. I was a board member from, I can't even remember when, 2015 perhaps, to 2021, early 2021.
So from your experience with the Woodland Park School District, is it unusual to have even traditional public schools that cannot accept special education students with severe needs? How does that work?
Yes, so I was also on the BOCES, UP BOCES board, and there are centers, center-based programming. You will see vans and buses bringing students from Cripple Creek and Manitou to our center, and likewise vice versa, if there's a shared process for programming. So being a BOCES system, in that BOCES covers all 3 districts, it is a kind of a shared system, and there's a center-based program.
So not every traditional public school in either Woodland Park, Manitou, or Cripple Creek is equipped to admit and handle every special education student with severe needs. Some have to go to different schools, even outside of their school district. Is that correct?
That's correct, and you will see that a lot with rural schools down in all over the state.
Okay. So what I guess my final question is that during public comment, were each of you present for public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Did any of you hear any questions that you did not get an opportunity to respond to in your earlier time up here on the stage?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any question that you feel like you would like to be able to answer, and I imagine the people asking the question would like to hear an answer to?
You want to start?
Go, you go.
For me personally, the questions, the accusations about our finances and our loans. I have been, I wouldn't say flooded, but I have received many core requests, of which I have complied with every single one. We have taken a stance publicly. As a contract school, we are not beholden to the rules of CORA. However, we are observing them. Every single CORA request has been answered. There have been a few that have been, I guess denied would be the word, because of advice from our attorney. Our financials, I don't know how to be more transparent. We have everything on our website, every single CORA request that has been requested, which we will post very soon, a list on our website of every CORA request that has been made so that the public can also see what we have provided. It's all of our financials, everything. We have given it all publicly. We have given it all to you. Your financial director has scrutinized it. We have answered questions when there have been some. This idea that we are being secretive in some way, that we are not transparent, quite frankly, at this point enrages me, because we have done everything above and beyond what we need to make sure that we are being transparent. We have a loan with TBK Bank, which we needed to take out because of increased construction costs. Very transparent about that. The entire loan document is out there. Somebody cored that. It is guaranteed by 2 board members who were able to leverage property to secure a note. As a new school, we have no assets to be able to use in that capacity. This is a very common practice in startups. It is not commingling of funds. That was a question which we received, which I will read my answer verbatim. Commingling is the mixing of assets or liabilities that make it impossible to tell which belongs to which party. There is no commingling with merit with respect to the loan secured by personal property. It is a very clear and divisible separation. Somewhat off topic, but if this were actually the case, no small business owner would ever use their home as collateral for a startup loan for a business. As we all know, that is a very common practice. It's also very common practice for charters to do this and for founders to step in financially to assist in the beginning, be it through donations or loans or other means. Networking. If you know someone who knows somebody who might give some money to the school, does that make it wrong? No, this is what financially needs to be done to secure the financial stability of the school from day one. It is not easy opening a school. Financially, there are not a lot of options available, especially when you're a contract school, which is pretty much the same thing as a charter school, but nobody really understands it. So when we go to approach foundations for donations, they say, come back when you're a charter school, not a contract school. Even though we kind of get it, we kind of don't get it. So no for right now. We have been the recipient of several donations and grants this year. The Daniels Fund, we qualified for a $100,000 grant from the Daniels Fund. We have had anonymous donors donate up to $10,000 just through our PayPal account saying, good luck, guys. The idea that we are somehow hiding our finances. Please let me take just a second to say once and for all, we have received 0 funding from Charis Bible College. We have 0 association with Charis Bible College. I have nothing against Charis Bible College, but that's a flat out lie. We have not hidden one thing when it comes to our finances. And if there's anybody who can say otherwise and prove it, I welcome that conversation, because I'm quite fed up with the misinformation regarding this part of our school and our endeavor. So I'm sorry if I'm a little passionate about this one, but this is very frustrating. There are flat out lies, misinformation, and I am tired of listening to it, especially when the attacks come on me personally, which they did when I was accused of taking a salary from the school, which was not, it was a loan repayment. But these are the kind of lies and misinformation which get spread and then they blow up, and we have no recourse other than posting on social media, which we won't do. It's just, it's not what we feel is a productive forum for conversation. So that is my 2 cents on our finances. Thank you. Did that answer your question, Director Illingworth?
Well, I mean, the question was, were there questions that you felt needed to be answered? So that's up
Okay,
to
yes,
you.
so that was the big one. Yes.
The question, I'm going to revert to my former life. Napoleon told his marshals, you may ask me for anything in the world except time. I cannot manufacture time. I hear the word delay. If you look back 5 years and consider the drop in enrollment of approximately 680 students, and if Mr. Gustafson was here, he could correct my beer math, that's $6 million in funding. There is not time for delay. I spent last night having a marvelous time engaged with the District Facilities Committee, and we were all working collaboratively to address the 1,400 students who do not attend WPSD schools, and also to attract other students from around other areas. The maximum number of 5-year-olds for 2026 has already been born. We either need to increase the participation of local students or gain participation from surrounding areas. 16% of our applicants were from Park, Douglas, or El Paso County this year. We need to bring these families to town. We need to increase the participation in WPSD. I can't imagine what Mr. Gustafson could do with another $6 million. He would do marvelous things. But what we cannot afford to do is delay.
I also have one more point when it comes to the conversation of tax money. As Mr. Weston pointed out earlier, you can view this district in two ways. You can view it as the WPSD kids and the Merit kids, or you can view this as all of our kids. Our kids go to youth football together. They should be able to do that without being criticized. They go to land sharks together. They should be able to do that without parents bickering in the stands. They go to, swimming together. They go to the park together. Our children in the community outside of our schools are one group of children. The way we have always viewed us at Merit Academy is that all of these students in the WPSD, including the children at Merit, are students in our district. Their parents live here and work here or commute. Our teachers work here. We buy our groceries here. We buy our gas here. We buy everything here. We contribute equally in proportion to sales tax. The better question I feel to ask is, how do you justify not providing those same resources and those same opportunities to children whose parents simply desire a different choice within the family of the WPSD, which is what we all are. We are not wanting to create a division at all. That is not our goal, not our desire from day one. Mr. Austin, you probably remember, we even spoke of this in our original presentation to the board back in 2020. The division is already here. We are trying to find a way to keep families local, stop the bleed down into the Springs. I myself am one of those. Had we not started Merit this year, my children would be going to the Springs for education. I have friends who have had to make that choice. I've lost friends who have moved to the district, or moved to the Springs or different places. We all have. I don't think we need to really delve further into that. When it comes to the question of tax money, that really for you all to decide is a question of, how do you view this community and these children? Is it those Merit kids? You can lump them in with those Manitou kids. Or is it, these are all of our children, and you all are tasked with protecting and ensuring educational options and growth for all of the children in this community, not just the ones who attend 5 specific schools. So that, I think I can let that one rest there. That was just my point on that.
Nicole, I have a question, or maybe you can clarify that I'm understanding you correctly. Can you, how many, if you don't mind, or roughly can say how many Merit employees?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You can talk, John. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, it's funny, I just wrote that one down. So if a business came to town and talked to the chamber or maybe the city council and said, we'll bring 38 jobs with a flexible schedule to Woodland Park, I think people would be pretty excited. We have a payroll of about 38 folks. A Facebook falsehood is that we didn't provide insurance, didn't provide benefits, et cetera. We do, but we also asked a question during our hiring that I really liked, and that was, what is your desired schedule? And we asked everybody that at least I was sitting in an interview on, and we had lots of really talented folks, and some of those talented folks are down here, and they took our vision and ran with it, and we're so proud of you guys. You guys made it happen. They're marvelous. But anyway, we asked them what their desired schedule was. And some people said, I'd like to work mornings if I had my dream. And some people said, I'd like to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And some people said Tuesday, Thursday. And some people said afternoons. And our miraculous scheduler over here, Dr. Peckeron, pretty much made that happen. So 38 folks, some are full-time, some are part-time, and that's the answer.
Okay, so you're projected to have 300 students. Now, all the families that are living up here not only pay taxes, but they contribute to the sales tax. They shop here, they generate revenue for the district. The sales tax goes to Woodland Park School District. So the idea that people say you're putting such a burden on the students of Woodland Park School District, you're really generating revenue for this town as well as keeping families within Woodland Park. So you are generating revenue for the town, which goes to all the students. And if you weren't here, we would be losing that money anyway. Is that correct?
I'm thinking about making up a bumper sticker that says Teller taxes for Teller students spent in Teller County. Our taxpayers' efforts should be rewarded locally and fed back in through sales tax and other economic activity. I'm not smart enough to know the multiplier on a dollar spent. You know, if somebody contributes $1 in school taxes, I don't know how many dollars that turns into for economic activity, but I know it's more than one. Nicole she's smart economically, she might know that. Not to put her on the spot. But you're exactly right, Sue. We have a leakage of money. When a child gets on the bus at the Cristola to go down to Manitou, that money goes down there with him or her. When a child homeschools, that money never shows up. When a child goes to private school, the parents are out money and we never see that money. So that money is leaking, that economic activity is leaking out of the district, and we need to, I believe we should focus Teller taxes in Teller County and provide ways to capture that money and generate the economic activity that does come back at more than 1-to-1.
And that goes as well as when people move and they move their children outside the school district, that sales revenue is gone. Tax money, real estate taxes, and sales tax, it's not getting spent here locally.
Correct.
Can I add a little bit? Little numbers here. So I think right now the district's at 1,832 students. And back in 2016-17, when the tax was implemented, it was 2,480. So that's 648 student difference. Originally, when the tax was passed, it was for 2.1 million. That was the original number. And right now, it's at 2.9 million. So you have 648 students, fewer students, and $800,000 more for sales tax revenues. I believe this year it's budgeted at 2.7 million, given that next year it's at 2.9. And even if the district were to stay flat in enrollment, that's a $200,000 difference. So when you say the school's merit is going to cost the district $300,000, well, you've got a $200,000 increase in sales tax by the city predictions. And so it's really a $100,000 difference that you're looking at. And so it's very interesting to follow the sales tax because it's increasing. Last year it was, or maybe it was this year, it was like 9%. It's crazy. And you look at that compared to the enrollment numbers and merit and starting to add that in there, I think you're still far better off than you were back in 2016 when it was first initially presented and passed.
Thank you. I do have two more questions. There are two things that I would like to have answered that I still have questions about in regard to the contract signing tomorrow. A number of the people who came to the microphone and the DAC, there's two questions. I'll just give them to you and you can answer them as you want. And the first one was the essential elements of the contract of the MOU would be the essential elements of the original application that were then again mentioned in the MOU would be carried forward and would be addressed in this contract. For instance, you originally said in your original application you would not take the sales tax, and now you're requesting that. And I just want to hear your thoughts on that. You had originally talked about, and I guess you did answer about building a structure, building, and so you did address that. But I don't know if you're prepared to answer this one. If you don't have, the DAX question was about section 10.2 and 10.3. Are you familiar with that part of the contract at all?
Yes.
And the DAX concern was that this would be according to state statute and not presume that use of WPSD facilities would either, if you grew a lot, you would automatically get more facility. So if you could address, or that you would automatically assume your access to the middle school. So I don't know, do you have that there in front of you? Are you prepared that you could address that?
Again, in terms of discussing a
You're
potential
right.
within the school, I'm going to.
So again, I'm going to caution even our president.
Yes, I'm going to
lie.
respectfully say we have been asked not to discuss
Okay.
that specific
But-
tonight. However, I will address, unless somebody else wants to jump in before me.
Yes, that was my
Sections
fault. I broke the
10.2 and-
rule.
10.2 and 10.3 do align very closely with state statute when it comes to this topic. I don't know what else. I mean, it's not like these were made up and just pulled out of thin air to somehow fit the vision that we might want to see happen. This came from the attorneys. This is typical of a charter contract, and it does align with state statute. So, I mean, I don't know how else to address that question.
Okay. One of the DAX concerns and another speaker was the differences in the original application, the sales tax, the building, and can you address that? Why this time, why before you didn't ask for the sales tax, and why this time are you asking?
Sure. So the application is a starting point. The charter is the contract. I think that's a difference that is probably more of a legalese type difference that a lot of us lay people don't understand. I know I didn't understand it when I got involved with this. I mean, this has been a learning curve like this. The charter itself is the contract, which has not been signed yet. That's the charter. The application is not the charter. The application is the starting point for crafting the charter. Why did we change our approach when it came to sales tax? For all of the reasons that I've already said tonight, for the community members, the parents, everybody who approached us and said, this isn't right, this isn't fair. Why is it not fair for my kids to benefit from the taxes that I pay up here when the other kids do? It's the same umbrella. So, I mean, do you want to add anything to that? John, do you want to add anything to that?
I think it's an interesting question. It's almost a screening question. If you ask, how many school-age children are in the WPSD? And if the answer is 1805, that indicates one mindset. Now, Miles and I talked last night. I was interested in his, and his guess, pretty close to mine, was 3,200. So if you say there are 3,200 children in the WPSD, that indicates a different mindset. And a mindset that somehow takes those 1,400 kids and counts them as less than a full person is one that will continue, I think, to lead to decline. So the mindset is we take care of all the kids with all the taxes from all the people and try and spend as much of it right here as we can, is my mindset.
The original purpose of the sales tax also, if you go back to the original documents, was for the education of all students within the district. Again, this goes to how do you view Merit Academy students? They are students within the district. Logic then demands this is for the purpose of educating all students. I don't want our kids to somehow be pushed aside and our families made to feel less important because we live here, we work here, we thrive here, we want to be here, but our kids are not treated the same. We don't want division. We are better together.
So Nicole, when you do, if you do or you do not get chartered, you will be part of the district, correct?
If we do not get chartered.
If you do get
if we do,
chartered,
yes.
you will be a part of Woodland Park School District, correct?
That is correct.
So I can just imagine the conversation with the wall down the middle of the school. I'm not talking finances, not facilities, that this side of the wall gets no tax money and no representation, and the other side does. So you're correct, it's not fair to the children because the adults can't agree on sharing the money with all of the district's students.
Quite a while back, I made a statement at one of our own meetings. This is before we were ever a school, so before any quora or open meeting requirements, and this is when we were all just meeting at my dining room table once or twice a week for like a year. When we would get to a point where we did not know what to do, what direction should we take? How should we approach this? Our first question is, what is going to be the best thing for our kids? And the answer to that made everything else easier. This isn't about our teachers. I love you guys, but it's not about our teachers. This isn't about us. This isn't about our admin. This isn't about the WPSD. This is about our kids. What is the best thing for our kids? And when we use that as our guiding force, all of our decisions became pretty clear. We have not done a single thing intentionally to be malicious toward the WPSD. We do not wish ill at all on any of the teachers or the students in the WPSD. It's choice. It would be like saying that we wish ill on Manitou and we wish ill on CSCS. We don't. Or on Lake George Charter School. It's a good thing to have choice. We have choice in this country. We have choice in religion. How many churches are there in this community? We have choice in cereal. Have you walked down the cereal aisle? We have choice in literally everything in our lives except education in this community. Can you afford to go to the Springs? Can you afford to go to homeschool or do you have the time to homeschool? Do you have the ability to homeschool? Can you afford to go to a private school? Those aren't equal choices because they involve a hardship of some sort. So when the clarity of that thought came to me, it made everything else easier. This is for our kids. What's going to be the best decision for our kids moving forward? And if what we were struggling with was not the answer, then we went a different direction. So that, I mean, I don't know how else to sum it up. That's why we're here. We're not here because we want to divide the school district. We're not here because we want to take jobs away from the school district or money away from the school district. We are here because we want educational choice for our children. And so do a lot of other people who have come to our school. That is all we're trying to do. So.
Thank you.
Two things really quick.
Can I talk about choice just for 30? Can I get my 30-second special?
Yeah.
There's a 1 minute special, John. 1 minute special.
I yield 30 of it to Gwen because she's way smarter than I am. Our baseline document in this nation says there are 3 inalienable rights, and we had a noted scholar give us a marvelous presentation. He spent 2.5 hours on the first 5 sentences of the Declaration and kept a room of 150 people riveted. No mean task. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as he talked the other night, I realized that choice, liberty is a state of being, but choice is the verb that goes with that. Our ability to make choices is liberty. And that is one of the three, that is our three inalienable rights. And so I think choice is in our DNA, whether it's picking cereals or churches or car care park places or restaurants or whatever. Choice is in our American DNA, and that is liberty. And I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. One is, my first question is, and I'll admit it, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but maybe not. Do you want to change Woodland Park's mascot?
Where did this come from?
I don't know, I'm asking.
Just like,
I mean, it's like go to the source, right?
No, we are.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So somebody
Thank
came
you.
up
Like
to
I
me
said, a little tongue-in-cheek.
and said, Gwen, you need to stop telling people we're going to change the middle school mascot. And I said, are you effing kidding me? Because that is not happening, right? I never said it. Nobody's ever said it. In fact, what I have said is, be proud you're a panther. Be proud you're a bear. That's who we are, right? You identify with those things. Be proud you're an eagle soaring eagle. I mean, a summit soaring eagle.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I didn't mean to start anything. I just wanted to ask because it's out
That's just
there.
one of those misinformation
Right,
things.
so my second question really, and this might be a bit of a closer, is there anything that you want us to know that you've not already shared?
You're gonna get her to cry.
I think you probably already know this about our school, but one of our core tenets is character development, and we are unbelievably strong and proud of that. We have 5 virtues. Those virtues are woven through everything that our kids do. My son will come home and tell me, Mommy, I finished this project today that I was working on. It's perseverance, and I got my badge stamped for perseverance, and he's in kindergarten. We are pushing perseverance, goodness, friendship, responsibility, and valor. And that is those 5 things, not only for our children, but for our families. There have been some very challenging conversations through this process where families have felt like they want to speak up against some of the allegations and misinformation and flat out lies, where I have spoken personally with them and said, it's not the time. Restraint. We need to model the behavior we want in our children in ourselves. I am not perfect. I'm not sitting up here saying that I am perfect and that every one of our families and every one of our kids is perfect, but we need to model the behavior we want to see in our children and ourselves. I hear kids from other schools, elementary schools, at events I've taken my own children to, talking negatively about Merit Academy. Where does a second grader hear that? Not from another second grader. We need to model the behaviors we want to see in our children. And that is why these virtues, there's a difference between values and virtues. Virtues are constant. Values can change based on the society. These are our virtues. These are the core of who we are as a school. So I know that you know that from our application because they're listed as our 5 virtues, and it's pretty much in everything that we discuss. But I think really understanding the importance of why they have shaped our school. So, John, do you want to?
Thank you, Nicole. That was amazing.
You know, this has gone past 9 o'clock, but I think that this is important, and I still have some DAC questions that I would like to ask, but if we don't mind, if people want to continue with this, or, okay, we'll continue.
I will leave that in your hands. We are more than welcome, or we are more than willing to answer your question.
If you're willing, I have questions.
I have wanted an opportunity to have a conversation board to board for months, and we haven't had that. So I think that this is wonderful. I think it's wonderful for you and for us and for the community. So at your discretion, we are willing to sit. It's up to you.
If there's people, I understand a lot of you work tomorrow, and if you need to leave, don't feel embarrassed that you have to leave, but you're welcome to stay. Mr. Austin, did you have any more questions?
I just wanted to make sure they had a chance to answer that last question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, go ahead.
That's it.
Okay, one of the concerns that of the 6 DAC concerns is that this, and it was to us, this board of directors, as well as yours. Could you address the contract seeming, or that it was rushed, that it seemed far too rushed, that it was pushed through, that I know that there was a meeting that we had here where I did not push for dialogue, that the appearance was of rubber stamping. I personally was corrected on that, officially corrected for that, and I take responsibility for that. But I want to know, what are your thoughts? Do you have anything that you'd like to say about rushing this contract?
The perception of time is very different between the doctor and the patient. The patient is lying there waiting for the doctor. The doctor may be worried about his golf time on Saturday. From our perspective, this has been a very long process. This process has stretched.
6 months?
No, the whole process has stretched almost 2 years. As we've moved from applying originally, it was a 475-page application, I believe. Poor Chris may remember it. Hopefully he didn't drop it on your foot. The initial discussions, the rejection, the contract option. We were contracted on April 20th. We opened doors on August 23rd. Then we re-engaged because we really want to be part of the community. We want to, as somebody said earlier, the divisions have already happened. Bringing the kids back to the WPSD is what heals the division, not causes it. So it's been a very long process from our point of view. If somebody has not been engaged for the entire 2 years, it may look fast, but a normal, as you said earlier, President Rusterholz, a normal contract application is a 4-month process. This has been a 6-month process with lawyers going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and small words and big meaning, but we've redlined documents back and forth to each other through our lawyers several times, 4 or 5 times, partly just to make sure we are in line with state law. We do not want to have a contract that is illegal. We want to do this correctly. So we're fine with it, but from our perspective, this has been a very long process.
Thank you. I have another question here. As far as your use of the sales tax money, there is some thought that perhaps there is not enough fiscal oversight with using that money that is coming from here. Could any of you address that, please?
So we would follow the same oversight that the district follows. In the stakeholder report, the district forecasts how much sales tax revenues they are predicting for that year and where it's going to be distributed. There are several categories to which that sales tax can be used. Teacher salaries, instruction, career tech ed, and facilities, I believe. There might be a 5th, but I can't remember what it was. So in that same vein, we would forecast on our website, financial transparency page, likely, where that money is going within those boundaries.
And are you subject to a financial auditing the same as the school district?
Yes, and we will likely be, well, we will be using the district's auditor, so we definitely need to know who that is, so we can get that rolling.
Mr. President, Vice President, may I excuse Tom Watson so that he may travel home to Castle Rock?
Of course.
Hey, Tom, wake up.
I just know that he's got about a 2-hour drive home, so
I couldn't understand what you said.
Can I excuse Tom? Does the board require anything else from Tom this evening? He's got about a 2-hour drive home.
No, of course not.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry that we didn't.
He's
You can
great.
leave
I just see him
anytime you
sitting
want.
there, and so I feel bad. So, Tom, thank you very much. And,
Yes,
and
thank
safe
you.
travels home.
Thank you for being here this evening. We really appreciate it.
Sorry for the interruption. All right, Tom, and that was an accolade for you. We do really appreciate it. Thank you.
I have two more questions that were concerns last night, as I recall, and from the notes that I took this evening from the DAC. About oversight from the school district. Can you describe the oversight as far as curriculum goes? What oversight do you have on your curriculum? What oversight do you have on, let's say, discipline, all those kinds of things for your students?
Those are waivers by statute. So the school has the authority and the power to select our own curriculum, our own discipline processes. There are state laws regarding discipline and suspensions and expulsions and all of that stuff. We are not waived from those. Those things are things that we will follow, and they will be policies in which the board, our board, and myself will be named as the governing bodies for that. As far as the expulsion, that actually comes to the district for expulsion hearings, and that is in our contract. So as far as the oversight, it is very much in line with the Charter School Act, and it also is very much in line with typical charter authorizer contracts.
And does state law and this contract have basically performance measurements that the charter school has to do and account for to the school district?
Absolutely. There's many, many milestones and markers by which we will be working with Dr. Neal and his staff as far as testing windows, performance measurements, all of that. It's all listed in the state statutes, what's required for that performance dashboard, and those are things that we will be working closely with the district.
I do have another one concerning the testing obligations and the differences between the charter school and WPSD or a traditional public school. And I'm not sure that I exactly have the acronym right, but one of the ones that you have opted out of is the MAP.
We just
testing.
did the maps, and I just announced what our results were.
Just say that again.
We have done the maps. We do the maps tests, and I just read what all our results were.
Okay, so that one was covered because that was one of the concerns that others had, that we weren't able to compare apples to apples, that there was somehow a difference, that you were not doing all of the testing that WPSD is doing.
Well, and that's a misnomer. It is in our application, so we have not swayed from that. There's many places we have not swayed from our application. It is actually pretty core to who we are, and we are still pretty much following what our application states, and one of those things is our testing. MAPS, DIBELS, CMAS, PSAT, SAT, all of those things will be in line. We actually just completed the AccuPlacer test with our 8th graders. We have a PPCC program, concurrent enrollment program, and we have several 8th graders who actually qualified for English 121 and Math 121. So they will be taking college classes next year. So that is another test, a standardized test that we are taking.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from other board members?
Yes, I have a minute special. When we came on the board, you were a contract school, and I just want you to clarify that the negotiations were never board to board. The MOU, we were counseled by our legal counsel to pursue the MOU route because you were in fact a charter school. And every negotiation has gone from your board to your attorney to our attorney to mostly our administration for the first January, February, and March. We did not see a contract, us as a board did not see a contract until, don't quote me, but I believe it was in April. So all the negotiations were never from board to board.
No, absolutely. We went through Barry the entire time, and it was us to Barry, to the attorneys, and then to the administration, I believe, to the district. And that's how, the back and forth has been. There have been quiet moments, and there have been frantic moments with timelines, but we've been able to communicate with our attorney pretty quickly.
It's been quite painstaking because it's like, let's just all sit down and have a conversation. We can get this done. No, it's got to go from us to our attorney, to your administration, to you, back to your administration, back to your attorney, back to our attorney, back to us, back for changing one sentence. So we have definitely done everything through the attorneys. And I will mirror what Mr. Weston's question was earlier. We've never met as a board. We've never had a conversation like this until tonight,
So for clarification, we as a board, or you as a board, we listen to legal counsel in pursuit of the MOU. We did not confer with you in negotiations. We have followed legal advice to this whole thing. So the allegations of us slowing down or not doing things properly, we have never not listened to legal counsel, and we have followed legal counsel's advice from this board to the administration, to our attorney, to your board, correct?
correct. We did not even know about the MOU until it was pretty much presented to us. We didn't even know that was an option until I believe it was Dr. Neal who crafted that. And yeah.
So for the public to clarify for the public that we are not a runaway train on the MOU issue, we were counseled by our legal firm to do it that way.
Yeah. As far as we understand it, yeah.
And administration.
Well, I do have one more question. I just remembered something. I've been talking to so many people with so many questions. I've written things down and I don't have all my stuff in my little black book. I had a parent ask a question that's kind of near and dear to me, and it has to do with swim team. Now, as I understand, WPSD may not have a boys swim team, but Merit Academy has a boys swim team. Is that correct?
No, you have to go through a CHASA process.
Say it one more time.
You have to go through CHASA process, and I believe it's a 2-year turnaround. You have to have a club, which we do have a club, but it's not a merit club. So in actuality, myself, the swim coach, and the AD all met to discuss bringing the boys team to the high school, to WPHS, as a WPHS team, Panthers on the side. And what would that take? And then in the long run, when merit is established with CHASA, because right now we can't do anything with CHASA because CHASA is high school activities and athletics. And so when merit has that 2-year belt under, 2-year span under their belt, then one of the conversations was, what can the district and what the high school and merit do to collaborate even more when it comes to some of these teams? What teams will the district want to hold? Obviously football, right? We're never going to be that big, and it's fantastic that we have kids on these teams. We talked about the hockey team being full of WPHS kids. You have kids from Manitou, you have kids from Cripple Creek, you have homeschool kids. It's just a great way for these kids to get together. As Tina even said, it's not uncommon for our kids to be together after school hours. So no, we do not have a swim team. We are not eligible yet as a CHASA team, but it is in the works for the high school to have one because there are plenty of boy swimmers who are eager to have that team started.
But right now, WPSD can't have one because of certain statute.
No, I believe that actually has not been. Chad did some research and found out with Title IX and the variances. I don't know if it was wrestling. There are some sports that WPSD can actually host that men's team.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, it was really recent, just a couple months ago.
Any other questions?
Yes, Gwen, I saw where on the survey for the mastery facility plan that one person put the swim center as number one. That had to be you.
Put the swim, I love our pool. Yes, no, I like our pool.
Dr. Neal.
Members of the board, if there aren't any further questions for the Merit team, then you would move forward to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. If I could take my 60-second special, I want to acknowledge something. So I don't think we're myopic, but I'd say we're incredibly focused on all of this. But it's not lost on me that there's been a forest fire in our county and that many within our district have been affected by that, whether they're first responders or their families who live in those places, or they have volunteered to go and help. And I just wanted to acknowledge that while this may seem like front and center for all of us, there's other stuff that really are important and they're impacting our community. And I just want to acknowledge and thank everyone who has been so helpful and it's just, many of us who've lived here a long time, we've been through forest fires. And so we understand that this community has the power and the capacity to really pull together. My hope is that it would not only be in the face of tragedy. And so I just want to acknowledge and thank all the first responders and all the volunteers and all the people, and just let the families who are impacted by this forest fire know that they are in our thoughts and our prayers. Thank you.
Amen.
And Dr. Neal, can I ask you to tell us about the volunteer efforts that a lot of the WPSD employees have been involved in just this week regarding that fire?
Sure, and we're actually on Fox 21 News at 10 o'clock tonight with an illustration of our teachers stepping up and helping with, really what it came down to is our teachers recognized that families were being evacuated from their very own schools, and they really wanted to go out and reach out. So we were on KDVR and Channel 5 last night, where our teachers took the day and our families really pulled together and took care of each other's kids, and we closed schools and got a lot of regional attention to where our staff were able to go and volunteer. That was at the bequest of our county commissioners, and so I went down there on Sunday to make those arrangements. They'd asked me to come down before the week started, and we mobilized within 24 hours nearly 100 staff to go down there and support that effort. And so to Chris's point, it was teachers have a lot to do in the last 2 weeks of school, and I just wanted to honor our teachers' efforts, that those are still here. And then my administrative staff that are up running sound and clarifying questions. We started a text stream about 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning, and they covered 50 or 30 or 40 probably questions about all of the things that we needed to do as a district to make this happen in 24 hours. And so it was a busy week for chartering. It was also an incredibly busy week for just our community. And so, and the commissioners will be extending a community service award to the Woodland Park School District on behalf of our employees for that contribution. So it was successful, and thank you for asking.
Thank you to the employees.
Well, and I just want to say I thank Director Austin for bringing up something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, even though we get swamped with these other things. But I also want to recognize the amazing community spirit and commitment of the Woodland Park School District staff. And I join all of us in saluting their noble efforts, but I also want to make sure that we also recognize Dr. Neal. You were a leader in that, and so I think you also deserve some recognition on that part. So thank you, Dr. Neal.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So on that note, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Gee, I'll make the first motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Illingworth,
Aye.
Patterson,
Aye.
Rusterholz.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for being here.
Have a good
Thank
evening. Mr. Goings, if you're still here, we'll give it about a 10-minute wrap up for everybody if we're going to go ahead and try to close the building and lock it up. So